It is going live now.
Oh, God, yes. For cassette tapes or some kind of. I have a pen.
Madam Mayor, it is 6:04 and we are live.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 7th, 2026 City Commission Workshop on Code Compliance. May I have the roll call, please?
Mayor Betty Rush,
Here.
Vice Mayor Mimi May,
Present.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga,
Present.
Commissioner Christopher McVoy,
Here.
Commissioner Anthony Segrich.
Present. Thank you. Mr. Segrich will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, tonight is pretty much the staff show. We are going to hear from staff. Mr. Perry, should I just turn it over to you at this point?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much.
First of all, let me take the opportunity to thank you all for allowing us to present tonight. Tonight, we're going to have staff. We have staff from Code Enforcement, Planning and Zoning, Building Department here. And what we want to do is provide a brief overview of the Code Compliance Division. And from that, hopefully, at the end, we can try to address some policy issues that more short-term, and at the same token, more long-term as it deals with the ordinances. And as a follow-up, we'll have a special meeting on June 18th for the public to come in and they'll have an opportunity to make some comments. But in the meantime, hopefully in between that time, we'll come out and we'll make some changes to some of those issues that we addressed tonight and hopefully bring them back and maybe correct a lot of those issues that we
And I would just like to add to that, for the folks here and the folks out there, if there's something that you've had, there's something about code enforcement that you would like us to know about, email us, copy each one of us. The only way we know what's going on is what we hear. So I just want to add that to this, in preparation for the special meeting.
That's fine.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll turn it over to the Community Sustainability Department and let them make the presentation.
Good evening, William Waters, Community Sustainability Department. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss code compliance as well as other items. With me tonight is Yolanda Bryant, who's in charge of code compliance, Barry Schultz, who's our building official, overseeing the building division, Scott Rodriguez, who's planning, preservation, and zoning. He's the assistant director for that. With Yolanda is also Krista Simmons and Bobby Hicks, their management within code compliance. And then Alicia Wilson is our business license division manager as well as budget person. So we're going to go over the first part, and I'm going to let Yolanda take it over to refresh everyone's memory, as well as provide not new information, but an update to the watching public. What exactly is code compliance in Florida and how does it operate, which is all covered by 162, the Florida statute. So I'm going to turn it over to her. We do have a placeholder within the presentation to go over areas where we have for quite some time, because this is our third presentation on what is code compliance and what is the policy going to be in the direction since the new commission came into a place. I guess it was spring of 2020, 21, that over time, there are quite a number of areas where we feel we could do a better job of being more business friendly, more property owner friendly. And also we want to go over some of the history of how we got the ordinances that we do have, which by law, we have to, when we're asked to enforce them, that's what we have. We can't go on the fact of what we like the law to be, or what we want the law to be, what the law might be. Code compliance has to follow what we have on the books. So I'm going to turn it over to Yolanda.
Thank you.
Hello, Yolanda Bryant, Code Compliance Assistant Director for the Department for Community Sustainability. So, quite sure you had an opportunity to read all the verbiage about code compliance and what governs code compliance. We're governed by Florida Statute 162, which was provided in your packet, copy of 162, and the city's municipal codes. We have 7 zones at the current time, and 8 code officers at the current time. We have 2 code managers and 3 code managers now. So we have a pretty large staff. A part of our outreach, we want to talk a little bit about outreach. A part of our outreach is courtesy notices. The courtesy notices are our door hangers. Courtesy notices are left at properties to give the tenants an opportunity to comply to violation for rental properties. And if the tenants do not comply to violation, garbage, trash, and debris, cut your grass, just minor violations. If they do not comply to violations, then a formal notice of violation goes to the property owner. But initially, it starts with the courtesy notice of violation to give the tenant an opportunity to comply.
I'm sorry, just to renters?
Yes.
So not to a homeowner?
No, it would go to a homeowner as well, but I'm just saying when there's tenants, we like to give the tenant an opportunity to comply to violation before we send a formal notice of violation. But the homeowners will leave a door hanger with the homeowners if it's minor violations as well. But violations like permits, business license, or that wouldn't be for owner occupied, but business license, permits, and some of the more major violations, those have to go directly to the property owner because
Do you have an example of the door hanger with you?
No, we do
Thank you.
not. No. But we can provide a door hanger to you. You have any questions? Okay. We also have the code compliance brochure, and the brochure is in Spanish and Creole. We have it in 3 languages: English, Spanish, and Creole. We have the Good Neighbor brochure, and these are also located on the website in English, Spanish, and Creole. We attend neighborhood association meetings. I'm oftentimes at neighborhood association meetings educating the community about code compliance and allowing them the opportunity to voice their concerns about the code compliance process as well. We have a wonderful partnership with Healthier Lake Worth Beach, where they assist code compliance with complying violations for those who do not have the ability to comply violations. I was speaking with Carmel today, and she said thus far this year, she's received 25 referrals that have already been addressed and complied. The average spending for materials and labor is $3,500 to $4,500 per property. And some require permits. That includes the permits. And she said she found a fairly cheap survey company who helps with the surveys for the permitting process. And she wanted to thank the commission for $75,000 that you donated to assist with complying violations for property owners who do not have the ability to comply.
And I just want to confirm that that is for home owner occupied, not
Owner
for renters.
occupied,
I just
not
need people to know
renters.
that.
Correct. But owner occupied, there may be some changes to the process. We'll talk about that. We're scheduling a meeting, Carmel and I, to speak about that at a later date. Okay. Also, code compliance is involved with the task force with PBSO, fire, our legal team, and we address items like chronic nuisance cases and nuisance abatement cases. We actually have a nuisance abatement hearing coming up it's on Monday
What
at
time?
11 o'clock. 11 o'clock.
11.
Okay. So we're working on some nuisance abatement, and we work very closely with legal and PBSO with nuisance abatement cases. And of course, we have a partnership with Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. When we have an issue where we need fire to go in, because they have a little bit more teeth than code does, when we have an issue where we need fire to do a fire inspection for life, health, safety violations, we will contact our people with Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, and they'll perform an inspection and give us a copy of the inspection results. They'll send it to code.
So they have more latitude to go in than we do.
Yes, they do.
Thank you.
Yes, they do.
Mr. McBoy? We're
Just
doing
to-
really quick questions right now, just clarification.
Madam, you just popped out your question.
Why don't have a light?
I'll loan you mine. On the nuisance abatement one, can you give us a rough number of how many of those have you've been working on in the last year, 2 years, something or other?
In the last 2 years, we've probably worked on maybe 2 nuisance abatement cases.
I'm going to interrupt and kind of help because under our code of ordinances, we have several categories of different types of things. Traditional nuisance abatement involves drugs, gangs, or prostitution, and those have to be initiated by Palm Beach Sheriff's Office.
Mhm.
We also have chronic nuisance abatement, which also
That's
is triggered by the sheriff's office based on the calls of service of legitimate reasons, which is 3 calls in 30 days. I think it's 7 calls in 6 months that could then have a property declared a public nuisance. We had the remediation program, which deals with lot clearings, board ups, and potentially demolitions. And we have a demolition I think we're going to be working on very soon that came up today or yesterday. And then we have traditional code compliance. Under the chronic nuisance section, property that's been in code compliance for too long can be declared a chronic nuisance, and then we can get an authorization from the special magistrate to force, hopefully, if they're complying or want to comply, a plan of how to bring their property into compliance. Often it deals with like illegal activity not related to nuisance abatement. We've had a couple of remediation plans put in place. The city does have the ability, once it's been declared, that we can use our remediation money to implement a plan if the property owner does not want to do it. We have struggled with getting clear direction from entities involved as to what they would like to see done to hopefully abate a property that is a chronic nuisance. I won't go into specifics necessarily, but we have, though that's been on the books for about 14 years now, I think we've only really used it once or twice. Though we do have a small budget that we could do that. The number of nuisance abatement cases related to drugs, prostitution, or the other thing, we had a lot of those cases when I first got here. It is fiddled down, and I think we actually really only have, you said 2?
We had 2 that moved forward, but there was a total of 10 altogether, but some complied prior to happening.
And of the ones that are not initiated by PBSO, the ones that come from us, roughly how many? Under 10,
Well,
under
we
5?
cannot initiate a nuisance abatement case, and we cannot initiate a chronic nuisance abatement case. That's on calls of service from PBSO. We can initiate, and we've done a lot of these, where a property that's been in code compliance has been uncompliant for a period of time.
That's the one.
It's unacceptable. I don't have a specific number, but it's probably in the dozens.
Okay.
Because we have right now, and they'll show it, 1,800 active cases right now.
And folks, let's use our lights just to keep order.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Me and this clicker. Current code compliance process, and this one you may want to give a little direction at a later date on the current code compliance process. We receive a complaint, or either it's an inspector generated case. The code officer then prepares a door hanger with the compliance deadline. Case is generated, the door hanger is entered into our system. If the violation is complied by the deadline for the courtesy door hanger, the case is closed. Violations not comply, a formal notice of violation will be mailed to the property owner. And that too will have another deadline. Violations complied by the notice of violation, formal notice of violation deadline, the case is closed. If not, the case is scheduled for hearing, a special magistrate hearing, and the case will be presented. Now, remember, it had the courtesy door hanger with a deadline. It depends on the severity of the violation as to how many days. Say, for instance, cut the grass, maybe 5-10 days, depending on the weather. If it's raining a lot, we're going to take that into consideration. But if it's a business license, maybe 30 days for them to come in and at least apply. But if they have to go through planning and zoning or building or have permitting issues, we adjust that time based on the severity of the violation, and we give them a reasonable amount of time. So by the time it goes to hearing, they've had more than a reasonable amount of time.
In addition, if the people that are under, the case are working, it's my understanding, are working and making progress and actually actively working towards compliance, you will extend those deadlines.
We do. We look for good faith.
Mhm.
We look for that. Once we hear about the good faith, or there could be communications with other divisions They could be working. They may have to go before a board.
Right.
So all of that is taken into consideration before it goes to hearing. So if they call for a postponement, we look at when the case was initiated, the severity of the violation. Of course, we cannot postpone life, health, safety violations, but any other violation, we can postpone and we can work with the customer.
Thank you.
And we do that all the time. Even if we sit in a hearing, I want to say if we're sitting in a hearing and we hear, because sometimes we're not aware of the conversations with other divisions. So if we hear that something is going on or there was not a quorum for the board, or it's something going on, we'll pull that case from the agenda. We don't have any problems putting that case from the agenda and giving them more time to comply, voluntarily comply, because that's our goal. Then the special magistrate gives them an order with the compliance date. We cannot override the order of a special magistrate. Once it hits the special magistrate, there's nothing any of us can do. They have to go back before the special magistrate. They can request an extension, but they will have to go back before the special magistrate, and the special magistrate provides the extension. He either approves or denies it. If the violation is not complied after the date the special magistrate offers, then the property start running in fines, start accruing fines. Again, based on the severity of the violation, the special magistrate sets the time and the fines. That's not set by code, it's set by special magistrate, time and fine. If they do not comply, then within 90 days, we get an authorization of foreclosure, and it's up to the city what they want to do with that property from that point. Code is out of it. Liens will run for 20 years. We do not lien homesteaded properties. We cannot have liens on homesteaded properties, just so everybody is clear on that. Okay. I'm sorry, we could put liens on it, but we can't
Miss-
foreclose.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just like, wait a minute.
We cannot foreclose,
I
I'm
was gonna
sorry.
say, okay, so we can lien them in case
But we
they
can't
sold the
foreclose,
property. We
yes.
cannot foreclose a homestead.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I
Yes.
was just like, wait a minute,
Thank
how do we
you.
get our money?
Mr. Secretary?
All right, now we want to talk.
Wait, one second. I'm sorry.
How often do we actually follow this process? Is this 100% time that we follow it,
Yes.
or less?
We follow this process all the time.
Because the feedback from personal experience and the public.
Okay, let's let them finish their presentation. We'll be discussing all this
Okay.
afterwards. Thanks. I mean, I know.
Everyone
what you're
else gets to
saying.
ask questions.
Yeah,
We
well,
follow this process.
and it was answered.
Okay,
Well, they answered it.
right. And again, steps for citing non-life health safety violations. Knock on the door, speak with the occupant, leave a door hanger. Allow reasonable time for compliance. We go back and re-inspect to see if the property owner complied. Notice of violation is mailed if the property owner has not complied. Again, another reasonable amount of time for compliance with the notice of violation. So these cases can take up to 120 days or more, if not, well, now it'll take even longer, because if it's in the historic district, they're allowed more time because that's a different process. So it could take some days. So properties are not in compliance overnight. Just understand it's a process.
Okay, Ms. Malega, then Mr. McVoy.
I just have a quick question, going back with leaving the door hanger. The door hanger that we leave is in all three languages on one hanger, correct?
On one hanger.
Thank you.
Mr. McVoy?
On the re-inspect the property, if the inspector comes back, and independent of whether the first violation has been complied with or not, and they see something else, what do?
If it's a courtesy door hanger, they'll address it with the property owner, but that is not going to be included in the initial case. They get more time for that, to comply that violation.
That's not my full question.
What's your
Because
question?
one of the complaints that I hear is that
Mhm.
I don't know that I've heard as much
I know
from
what you're talking
property, from residential. I've heard it from business owners. They get a notice
I know.
or
that's what I'm
they
saying.
get told, or one or another, they get communicated, they got a problem.
Mhm,
They fix the problem, presumably in good faith,
mhm.
and the inspector comes back and says, yeah, you fixed your problem. But now I see another thing. And
Okay, I'm sorry.
that generates some ill will, as you can imagine.
Okay, I just spoke with someone about this yesterday, a property owner, brand new property owner at that. Usually that happens with use and occupancy inspections. What you have to understand is we could only cite violations we can see from the public right away initially. Once we perform the use and occupancy inspection, we have full access to the entire property. And that's where they think, oh, you added violations, but we weren't allowed to see those violations. If it's a fence near the alley or anywhere around the property, that's an element of privacy. So we can't peek through the fence. We can't look over the fence. We can't do any of that. So we need access to the property to see other violations. So that's where they think violations are added on. But again,
Mr. McFoy?
This is more to my fellow commissioners than, I'm well aware, and I think a lot of other people are aware of the rule that you can't go onto the property without
Correct.
permission.
correct.
So you come onto the property to verify compliance and you use that as a way around the rule, or at least that's the perception that the property owner has, is now you got in the door by a different way that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think we need to think about how do we do that? Is it worth doing that? Obviously, life safety, yes.
We have a recommendation or a discussion item later about that very fact. We'll get
Great.
to it.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's let her keep going. Go ahead.
Okay, go. Okay. Okay, steps for, let me see. Okay, so now we're immediately telephone and emailing the owner. To be more business friendly, we started telephoning and emailing the owner.
And if we have an email or a phone number.
Well, let me ask you a question. We started an ordinance last year that, or so, that there's supposed to be a 24-hour person. Do we call that person, or is that always the, how does that
Keep
work?
in mind, that is related to the person having a business license to begin with and having that name registered with us. Many of our properties do not require a business license, and we don't have a phone number or an email.
Yeah.
So we do the best we can. Some of it is through you to help us, or your neighborhood associations. A lot of work from Yolanda is working with the neighborhood associations. You can often get more reaction in a positive manner from the neighborhood association working with the property owner than having code come down on them. And I think a number of our neighborhood associations have sort of designated or have a sort of code compliance liaison that helps work through issues because there are a lot of people that might need a little bit of help. My neighborhood in West Palm, we have one. And we try to help people before it becomes a major problem. And I think we've had a lot of voluntary compliance with neighborhood associations helping their own residents.
Thank you. Ms. Malega.
Just quickly, I received a phone call the other day from PBSO saying that my alarm fine hadn't been paid and that they would not respond to an alarm from my business downtown. Have we ever thought about using PBSO data for that? Because they did ask me to confirm my phone number and my email address for my alarm. So I don't know if that's a way that maybe a tool that we could use if they have a no trespassing sign to get emails and phone numbers. If they have a no trespassing sign or if they have an alarm
We can
system.
look into that and see whether they can legally share that information with us. I don't know.
Thank you.
The best tool we have to our disposal is we own our own utilities.
Mhm.
So sometimes we can get information from the utility account, phone numbers and emails from the utility account. So we have ways in which we try to reach out to the customer. We try to exhaust every way possible to reach out to the property owner. So utility account is a great tool. Notice of violation is mailed again, and steps for citing business rental license violations. Notice of violation is mailed to the property owner. Oh. Could you guys move it around?
You just had it.
Okay. Correct one.
There you go.
Okay. Okay. So rental license the notice of violation go directly to the property owner. That does not get a door hanger. It does not go to the tenant. Only the property owner can comply that violation. Permits and business license. Now let's talk about repeat cases because I had a big one. We just dealt with a big repeat case recently. Please understand, repeat cases, once a case has been presented before a special magistrate and we have an order for violations, and the property owner is cited again for the same violation within 5 years,
Mm.
for the same violation, it's a repeat. Has to have an order within 5 years, and it could be at any property owned by that property owner. It does not have to necessarily be at that particular property. Any property owned by the property owner, it's a repeat within the 5-year range. So previous violation found within 5 years, found that any property owned by the owners, fines start accruing the day we observe the repeat violation. Fines start accruing. When we take the case to special magistrate, it's only to get the case ratified. It's for ratification. And if they want to argue that the fines are too high, they have that opportunity. That's due process. They have an opportunity to argue about
Is
it.
that other properties in Lake Worth Beach or other properties in Palm Beach County or Florida? Any that they carry to? Do you know?
I believe it's in Lakewood.
If we're citing the repeat violation, it would be property that's within
city.
Lake Worth
Okay.
Beach. But keep in mind that liens do cross over properties that are owned by that same entity, regardless of where they are in Florida.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Signage.
Thank you. So when we suspect somebody of a repeat violation, are we going back through and ensuring that they are violating that same provision and that they went through a quasi judicial process and were adjudicated guilty of that?
Yes, we pulled the previous order. We have to look at the previous order.
And do you provide that at time when you're issuing that citation to the individual to say that, hey, we are now treating you like so they don't have any idea?
We do not have that responsibility for repeat violators. We do not. We just give them the notice of violation, when to appear. That's all we're required to do. They do not even have.
I understand what we're required to do. I'm asking what we do.
No, we follow the statute.
So we don't let them know.
And the notice does tell them that it's a repeat. Our notice that goes out tells them it's a repeat.
Okay. But we have some internal process to make sure that that repeat violation was in fact based on a previous order for that same exact violation.
Yes, and the special magistrate will address that as well.
Okay. And where it says provision, how broad is that? So for example, is it you violated the landscape code in the past, or is it you violated the section of the landscape code about needing adequate ground cover? So is it more broad or is it particular to like a very specific set of violations?
It's a violation of the municipal code. Whatever the code states, that if that violation falls within that range, it's a violation.
I think what he's asking is like the original citation violation that was given an order by the magistrate has a specific section of the code that was in violation. If that same section of the code is in violation again, then it becomes a repeat violation.
Yeah.
But it can be as broad as chapter 23.
No.
No,
Point
it can't be.
seven, but so I've seen it happen at the magistrate where it's as broad as you violated the landscape section. So I'm just trying to ascertain whether or not
But they would cite a
That's your
section of the landscape code, not just the
understanding.
landscape.
The only instance that I could think of would be general requirements, because that's extremely broad, but the landscape section is not as broad as the general requirements.
And keep in mind that we have two different sections that kind of govern general requirements. We have general property maintenance and we have the minimum housing code and structure code. So, and both of those are somewhat specific, but they do include items that may have more clarification in other parts of the code. Like chapter 23, different parts of the zoning or landscape code fall under oftentimes the general property maintenance code or the general building maintenance piece.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Malega, Mr. McBoy.
My bigger concern is previous violations found within 5 years. Is 5 years the Florida statute?
Yes.
I think that is way too lenient. Personally, I think that is. But if we have to go by the Florida statute, I just think that's ridiculous.
Would you like that going back farther than 5 years or less than 5?
I just think that if you have somebody who's a repeat offender, I don't think that there should be a time on it. I mean, if you're somebody who's a bad player in this town, why should we give you any leniency?
Okay, I don't
But
think I don't think we can do that.
But I wish that we could, because it seems that, again, the majority of the that we have bad apples here. Not the whole drawer of apples is bad.
Right.
Mr. McCoy?
Just a question, and I hear the concern from Commissioner Malega about, how do you deal with bad apples? But I am a little bit concerned, how do you identify somebody as a bad apple? There's a little bit like, fruit flies. That's good. Somebody had a violation. They didn't cut their grass in the last 5 years. Oh, wait, are these only life safety, or are they?
Anything?
No, they're not just.
So I didn't cut my grass in the last 5 years, and I now get noticed and I didn't cut my grass again. Now I'm a major bad apple, and now I'm in this thing, right? What if and my question originally was going to be, does the record get wiped at any point? I got cited for not cutting my grass. I cut my grass within the deadline specified. Am I now clean, or am I permanently on the bad apples list?
You're not clean.
Eligible to be a bad apple.
You're not clean until you satisfy the lien, number one, and then
Until what?
you're still a bad apple for 5 years,
And then it's over.
and then it's over.
But keep in mind, though, that in order for the repeat violation to sort of stick, there has to be an order from the magistrate,
Mhm.
which, going back to Yolanda's earlier explanation, you've been given a door hanger and given time to comply.
Yeah.
You've been given a notice of violation and time to comply. You've been to the magistrate and gotten an order. That's
Now
when it
you're on the
triggers.
list. Got it. Okay, thank you. There's a little bit of a bar to
It's
get on the
percent-
list.
Hey, Ms. May,
Long process.
It is.
and we all wish it was faster. Ms. May and then Mr. Segridge.
You actually might have answered my question, but along the lines of, so if I am a landlord, let's say I own 15 properties, that'd be awesome. But let's say that I did. And so I have a tenant in each of the properties. And so if one of my tenants doesn't mow their lawn, and then the other one doesn't mow their lawn 2 years later, because I own those properties, I'm the repeat offender.
Yes.
Okay.
Same address? Does
No, it doesn't have to
be the
be the
same
same.
address, right? Yeah.
So it's the entire property, all of them.
The
Okay.
parcel, it goes by parcel.
Well, it goes by all of everything that I own.
Your
Yes,
portfolio.
correct.
That's the
Your
word I'm looking
portfolio.
for. My
Yeah.
portfolio
Yes.
of properties.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to sound horrible, but I'm sure it's done. Do people put different properties in different names so that they
course.
don't have to do that?
Of course.
Oh, my goodness.
They do.
Okay.
Yeah, because my question was, if in that 5 years, the property changes ownership, it
Correct.
stopped. I mean,
It'll stop.
starts again.
That stopped
Yeah.
it. So
So I could just change the name of my company
Yeah,
to
it's happened.
May 2.0 and I don't have that.
I love all the staff just nodding. Yeah,
Well,
that's
I mean, but so if it's so easy to get over it with the shell game, maybe it's not the right policy is what I'm saying.
Well,
That's all I'm looking at.
Following Florida statute,
Statute.
remember, it's not a policy.
yeah.
Mr. Segridge.
And so the escalated activity that we can do if they are a repeat offender, it's a can do, not must do. Is that correct? Meaning, let's say we did have a landlord who did have one crazy tenant and they were really working with the city, trying to get an eviction, trying to get this person out, really helping out with this, that they just kept sticking it to him. And then, as luck would have it, a couple of years later, they got another bad tenant. Must we treat them like that, or do we have discretion in terms of how we handle these things, and say that we can account for things like that?
We
Or
can look into that, and that's one of the things we're going to get to later, is that the policy direction given to us by the previous 2 or 3 commissions that Yolanda and I have been working with have been co-compliance is going to turn the city around, and the investments in the property are going to turn the city around. We can look into see whether there's some discretion, but we would need very clear, quantifiable, justifiable, and defensible reasons why we would choose not to do a repeat violation notice on one property owner versus another one. And that's where it gets to be really difficult. That doesn't become subjective and you have an equal protection problem.
And I'm just going to add, I mean, since we're really talking about exterior things, right? We don't go inside.
Correct.
Screen your
We'll get to that in
tenants.
a little while, the inside
Okay.
thing. That's
No,
a whole-
I'm talking about outside, right? As it is now. screen your tenants. And if you've had a problem with a tenant, if you're a landlord, make sure that your grass is cut. Educate. I mean, you have to
That's right.
work to be a
But
landlord.
there is some discretion, and I know that Yolanda and her team have done this. If the property owner lets us know they've got problem people,
Mhm.
we will work with them
Yep.
to some degree. But if you just ignore your property and let it happen, then unfortunately the repeat violation does occur. And I can't think of any specific example or address, but I do recall getting emails. We've got one today about this fence that this person's neighbor is bad. But anyway, if they let us know that they're trying to comply to property, we can work with them. Because our whole goal was compliance. It's why we changed the name of the division
Mhm.
16 budget years ago to code compliance versus code enforcement.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, like you said,
Oh, I'm sorry.
just that one thing. When you have a situation where there's an unusual circumstance,
Glenn Trusivia, city attorney.
sorry about that, Winter Sylvia, thank you.
Yeah.
Just to address some of the questions, there's always a special magistrate. That's your backstop. So if you have that landowner who had one tenant who was just a crazy tenant, and then they were good landlord otherwise, and then they 2-3 years later have another tenant like that, that's why you go to the magistrate and you explain that situation. The magistrate has the discretion. They have a lot of discretion to say, okay, repeat violation, instead of fining you $200 a day or $500 a day, we're only going to fine you $10 a day. So that's really your ultimate.
But that's for the second offense.
That's for this. Well, even the first time.
No, the first time I know, but what it sounds like is second, and I've been
Right.
doing this well. Second offense, it's automatic. It goes in whatever the fine was previously, whether it was $100 a day. But I guess they can go back to the general magistrate and ask, can we lower that second fine? Is that correct?
There's no specific amount for the fine. We suggest a fine amount, and it's up to the special magistrate. It's to his or her
Okay,
discretion.
so you just violate it. You don't set a fine.
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
Mr. Seg,
Just suggest.
Mr. Segridge?
I would just say, just in practice, the city does advocate pretty hard for the maximum fines. In the magistrate meetings that I've sat in, I've seen the magistrate come back and say, I want to be lenient. The situation seems good. And our attorney jumped up and said, no, you really shouldn't do that, and argued pretty hard for it. So, I think the city has a good amount of input into what these fines are.
Yeah.
And
And
as
they're the
part
ones
of the
that do it every
follow-up
day.
to this, we can give you some guidance on how we establish or recommend a fine.
Mhm.
And if you want a more lenient policy direction, you could provide that. I see shakings of heads and some nodding of heads, so that may not be consensus. But we did come up with a defensible sort of sheet of violations and what we would recommend. Because when I first got here, it was a crapshoot what a code officer might fine somebody for the same violation in two different places of the city. So we created a defensible, quantifiable thing. These are the types of violations that would be $100 a day. These are the ones that would be 50. These are the ones that were recommended for 250. And we passed that through the chain of command. I think it was under Michael at that time, Michael Bornstein, to have the commission nod off. Are you okay with this quantifiable type approach? Everybody's treated without bias, without prejudice. And that was how they would like us to do it. If you have a desire to change that policy, we can bring you back alternatives and you can give us direction as such.
Miss May and then Miss Malega.
So there is kind of a standard, is what you're saying. Would you please give us that list?
With repeat cases, what code staff does is we go for the maximum, because a lot of the repeat property owners, we know the repeat property owners. They're not, I cut my grass one time and now you're bringing me, but they're not those type property owners.
You work with these people every day. You're staff.
Correct. And we're consistent across the board. All repeat cases, we ask for the same amount. It's to the property owner, like Glenn says, the property owner attend the hearing and they speak on behalf of their property and give any kind of extenuating circumstances. But as far as evictions, if we know that there's an eviction in process, we contact legal and they help us decide how to move that case forward, or if we should even move that case forward. Legal is closely involved with cases that has some kind of legal processes involved.
Okay, Miss Malaga and then Mr. McFoy.
I like Malaga.
I like
That's
Malaga.
Spain. So I also have a question. upon knocking on doors in this great city of ours, when I was campaigning, I had noticed some orange stickers, and those orange stickers had a violation. And I know that there used to be language, if you didn't pull a permit, we could fine you up to
3 times.
3 times or 4 times the original fine or permit fee. Are we still doing that?
That's specified in our schedule of fees and charges. And at your suggestion, and I believe we adopted a reduction, we're allowed to charge up to 4 times. I believe under your recommendation, and it was adopted 2 budget cycles, if not 3 ago. I think it's only 2.
I thought so. So we have reduced that greatly. And that to me is being code compliance friendly, because up to 4 times I thought was a little ridiculous depending on what the permit cost was. So I just want clarification on that. Thank you.
Mr. McBoy.
A specific question and a more general comment. The specific question is roughly how many people are on the potential bad apple list? Out of, we have, let's say we have 40,000 people in the city, or, well, property owners is more like 25,000, but roughly what's the number? 100, 1,000, 10,000?
Yeah, because William is right. We do not keep a formal list, but we have some property owners who own several properties in the city, and the majority of their properties are in violation. I don't want to call any names, but we have quite a few of those, but we don't keep a formal list.
Well, yeah, I still would, I think, be helpful to have some idea. My bigger question is, I'm all for going after real live bad apples, but I'm concerned about what our process is to identify a bad apple, and that you want to be careful that you're not pulling in people who are, that there's some mechanism that people who are basically pretty decent, and maybe they got in a situation like something along the line of Commissioner Segrich's one, that there's a way to get them back off that list. Because I'm quite concerned that once you have some violation, you are on this list for the next 5 years.
So
right?
we can look at cold cases, like we'll look at the amount of cold cases they've had over a period of time.
Yeah.
The bad apples usually have a lot of cold cases over a period of time. We look at how much time it took them to comply to violations, and a lot of bad apples, they will not comply right away unless they're about to sell the property or is something going on. Now, all of a sudden, they ready to comply to violations and want the city to work with them. Of course, we still have a responsibility to work with them, but we have those bad apples throughout the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm so glad this is such an easy job.
Haven't touched it yet. Sorry.
The most common code violations, of course, business license is on the top of the list. Many property owners, we have, how many business licenses do you have? 900. We have 900 sitting that we may need to cite because we're going into business license renewal season, and we may have to cite over 900. You have a list of 900 that's waiting to be cited.
Okay, Ms. May has a question.
Can I just ask a quick question about the process for that? Because I don't own a business. So how would I know that it's my turn to be renewed? Or is it an annual thing? Is it?
We send out, even though it's not required, a formal renewal notice about the end of July, 1st of August, and it's due by the end of September.
And it's an annual thing.
Annual thing, and it includes all the things you owe the city.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make
We
sure
also send a
it's on
reminder.
the record that they're getting a letter. They're telling them what they need to do. It's annual. Okay, thank you.
If you don't get a letter, you should expect it.
And just remember, the use and occupancy inspections are every 3 years. Those are not, they don't have to do an inspection every year. Those are every 3 years.
But those you have to remember.
Yes, you have to remember those.
Could we change that?
But your renewal notice will have the fee on it. So if you paid for an inspection, you might want to call the city and schedule your inspection.
It lists what you're paying for.
Okay, so when
It's listed.
So when you get your business license renewal reminder, it'll say on there, this year you're paying X, and then if it's my year for my inspection, I'm paying.
You'll have 3
2X.
charges on that minimally. You'll have charges for your business tax receipt, which some properties have more than one, like Publix has a whole bunch of them because they do different types of activities.
Okay.
Then the next part is your use and occupancy registration. This quantifies what your occupancy and use is of the property. And if you were doing an inspection, you'll be charged a use and occupancy inspection fee. That fee is not every year, it's every third.
Does it say on there, please call for an inspection on
Yeah,
that
the
third
inspection
year?
number.
Okay.
Mr. Segridge? And then Ms. Malega?
Yep. Could we get copies and examples of those? Because the last ones that I saw were a little while ago, and they didn't have the city letterhead on it. It was just kind of like a blank email, letter that went out, and I sent it to you, William, and you said you were going to look at correcting
Which
it.
letter are you talking about?
Business
We have-
license renewal.
Right.
Well, regardless, can we get examples of those? And then my other,
Just reminder, so the edification for the public, we had entities that wanted an electronic renewal sent, and our system that we have now could not put the logo on the electronic renewal. I know we are in the same boat you are, shaking our heads. But the one that if you get a paper one, it's had the city logo on it, even in all the versions that it's been since I've been here.
okay, it wasn't in the ones that I saw. And maybe that was the electronic renewal notice.
Plethora of complaints about that because people
Okay,
don't know where it's
but-
coming from.
Did that get fixed?
So regardless, can we get copies of those? And then my other question is, if somebody pays and there's a use and occupancy on there, does staff reach out to schedule that, or you still wait and see?
It's on you to call.
It's their responsibility, and that's where we're in the quandary now, is that we have 900 properties that have not had their use and occupancy inspection. And we're discussing, and part of the policy would be from you, is how to go about notifying them. What we've done in the past is you get a notice of violation. There are reminders in advance if we have the staff capacity to call some people. And then you're reminded you need to do a use and occupancy inspection. Otherwise, you're in violation of your business license issuance. But right now, there's 950 something.
Dwindled down from that now, because we've had people that have actually called and scheduled. But yeah, it was roughly around that. Usually every year I sorry.
This is Krista Simmons.
Krista Simmons, compliance admin manager.
Is it on?
Yes, it's
We started, I started looking at it, I would say towards the end of last year. So we were at like 900. We might be down to 7 something now that still need inspections. But every year I usually open, I would say 400 to 600 license cases because they either don't have a business license or they have not had their inspection. In 2025, I opened 451, and out of those, 111 went to hearing.
Ms. Malega had her light on.
Oh, I just need the number.
So as one of the people up here who actually has a business here for over 16 years, I can tell you that the letter does come, it's green and white, and it says very large occupancy. This is when you expire. And not just that, you're supposed to have your business license displayed if you're a business that has, that's not a residential business. So I'm going to be devil's advocate up here. I think I said this a couple weeks ago. Lantana doesn't even send you a notice. It's on you to call the city of Lantana if you want to renew your license. And I found that out because I kept waiting for 2 months and I didn't get my notice. And when I called, the lady goes, yeah, we don't call you. It's up to you as a business owner to let us know if you want to renew your business. So I believe that we are very, very business friendly when it comes to that. The first year I was a little frustrated because I didn't know the first year I was supposed to have my inspection. My license didn't come. So when I called and said I didn't get my license, they said, well, you didn't schedule your inspection. Hindsight 2020, plan the inspection. I do think that we could put it in bigger letters. Please call to schedule your inspection. Your license will be held until then. Something like that. Just again, as a reminder, because sometimes the person who's paying the bill isn't the person who's running the business who will schedule that. It depends on how big of a business it is. So I think that way we could be more business friendly. Because if you have somebody who's a comptroller or the accountant who's just paying the bill, they're not going to tell the general manager or hey, by the way, you need to call and get this inspected.
Or they might, but they might forget.
Most likely the person who writes the check is not going to tell the person. So I just think that if we can be more business friendly, I agree. Always do better than the surrounding communities. But if we could make it bigger on, I think that renewal, that would help as well.
Miss May.
Just a question of numbers. So if we have the 900 or 700 that are not in compliance, how many business licenses or how many businesses are there in Lake Worth Beach?
Licensed?
Yeah, like what percentage of the businesses are we dealing with? Because like, for example, if I'm teaching a class, right, and I'm teaching a lesson and I give a quiz and they all fail, that's on me. But if one or two of them fail, that's on them. So I'd like to know the percentage of people that are out of compliance to see where it was maybe the responsibility lie more on us or more on the business owners, just so,
Yeah.
just numbers.
We have roughly in the neighborhood of 8,000 business licenses.
Okay.
However, when you pull data from the city, the business tax receipt portion, each one of those comes up as a trigger. So there's a lot more than 8,000 business tax receipts out there.
So you're saying there's about 8,000 businesses?
Well, that could include residential rentals as well. We consider that a income producing activity, whether it's residential rental or commercial rental, is about 8,000.
Okay, so 11% of those are the ones that are out of compliance, right? It could be higher if you take out the residential business licenses as rentals. So it is, I mean, it's not a small number.
Well, and they might correct me. I think we had the bigger problem with the use of occupancy inspections is with the residential business licenses than the actual business licenses.
Okay, so if I'm running a shoe store, I'm usually pretty good. If I'm renting a house, I'm not. Got it. Because yeah. Okay. And what happened? But this is I remember asking this. What happens if I don't do it? Who cares? But what happens if I don't have a license?
Well,
this is what's happened in the past. We were asked to give amnesties when it first was put in place 14 years ago, because at that time, the ordinance that was adopted, and I helped write it as well as the legal department, we were going to do inspections every year. Well, we could not get to that. We had approval from you all to hire more staff. That's why we have a lot more officers than we did originally. We couldn't keep the positions filled. So then it was changed. I think commercial stated every year because that was in tandem with the fire inspections. That's a different whole story. And then a residential went to every 3 years. And then due to our inability to that was a lot of inspections had to be happening. We went to 3 years on both routes. Then COVID happened and we were under a compassionate co-compliance executive order. And we triggered that, okay, those inspections aren't going to happen. So we tripped them manually to allow the renewal to move forward. And COVID is still around, but as far as I'm aware, the compassionate co-compliance has come to an end, but we still haven't caught back up with all the things that were allowed to happen under that order.
And you must understand, these inspections are not just, oh, we go one time and that's it. North 8th Street, how many units is that? 100 and North 8th Street? 86 units? It's 86 units.
Yeah.
Some of these are multi-family properties. And the one on 2nd Avenue North, that's 160 units we were inspecting, interior and exterior at one point. So these are not just you pass the inspection, it's over. Sometimes we were going there 3 and 4 times to reinspect until the property comes into compliance. So it entails a lot for these use and occupancy inspections. The exterior is not as bad, but the interior, it takes a lot for a property owner to pass those inspections.
so every 3 years you can go inside because that's when you're renewing your license.
We were going inside.
And now we
pre-COVID.
can't at all, which just makes me crazy. The
We
state
go in for
statute.
commercial, not residential.
Right. And that was a change in the
We
statute.
have gone in some when we were invited to go in, but we've been, the Florida statute preempted us from doing the residential interior inspections. And it's something we want to talk about a little bit later
Yeah.
in our more business friendly recommendations.
Yeah, because that's just crazy. Health and safety, if the toilet's not flushing or the electric is not right, we're not seeing that. We're seeing, is the fascia painted or is the yard clean? I mean, it's pretty frightening that the legislature did that.
Honestly, we really need an administrative warrant to go into
I know.
anyone's property. If they tell us we cannot come in, we cannot go in.
I used to
So
go
we
get
can't
'em.
force our way in at all, ever.
Mr. Segridge?
Just on that one in particular, I was under the impression that if we pared down our list of what we were inspecting down to life, health, safety, that we could actually go in, and that
No.
came
Can't go in.
from our city attorney.
Yep.
And did that come from COVID or did that come from?
What I will,
Commissioner, please speak into your mic.
Commissioner Hazard, the attorney's office was looking into whether we could set up something like that,
Mhm.
but it does require a great deal more training than what our current code officers are
Right.
provided, because then we're running along the same lines as a fire inspection.
Correct.
I don't believe it's all been worked out whether we could really legally do that or not.
So, table the discussion on that, because we're getting a little bit into the weeds on that one, but can you fully renew, apply and apply for your business license and pay for it online? And can you schedule your use and occupancy online and pay for it online? Like, can you do the complete process online, or do we have to email and phone call and drop off checks?
Almost. You can apply for your business license online. You can eventually pay for it online. Scheduling the inspection is not easy online because we don't have an ability to give somebody a calendar and say when officers are available, pick a date.
Mhm.
You do have to call in for that. We hope, and it's not been going very well. I was speaking to the mayor before this meeting started. The new ERP system is struggling the most with business licenses and business license renewal and the conversation of business licenses with co-compliance. We've been meeting with our consultant on a weekly basis based on divisions every other week for more than 6 months. And our initial meeting with them to kick it off was last June, I'm sorry. They spent a week with us learning what our systems were. We'll give you an update again soon. It's been a bit demoralizing for my staff that we were hoping to be far more along and provide you the interface and especially the public, the customer service that they were expecting. And we want, and I've reiterated every meeting I've attended, the service that we're going toward must be equal to or better than what we already have. And that is not the case as of today with co-compliance or business licenses with the new ERP. I'm sorry to tell you.
And yet we pay them.
It's disheartening to hear. I mean, in today's day and age, maybe we chose the wrong one,
Well.
because there are very mature products out there that can handle all of this.
Okay.
But-
Okay. I'm going to keep going.
It's all related though.
Okay, another common code violation is foreclosed, vacant, and unimproved properties. We're doing better with that, I believe, with people registering the property. So we're hearing that there's 75 to 100 that have not renewed from last year.
Renewed their,
Vacant registry.
okay. And this is one thing I've always said, how does somebody, I mean, I don't know how we get out there that somebody's got to do that. That's
They get a
real-
notice, like a business license notice. They
They
get a
do?
renewal notice. At the
Okay.
same time.
All right.
What happened?
What?
What happens if they?
What,
They-
it's kind of the question I had before. What happens if they don't?
They get a
Well, then they might
case.
get a notice of violation and we give them an appropriate amount of time to come in and register your property. It's vacant, or if you.
So
have-
that's not a voluntary registry. You have
Mandated.
to.
You have to do it, and it's not appropriate for a courtesy notice to put it on an empty house or an empty business. So
No,
we do that.
understandable.
We were
Okay.
asked to do that in the past, and we're like, well, what's the kind of point? It wasn't you all, anybody up there. The only way they're going to know is do a notice of violation, and then we're given, like Yolanda mentioned, an appropriate amount of time. It only takes you maybe 20 minutes to register your property.
But it can be online, read it.
Yeah.
So you can do that one online. So if I lived in Arkansas, I could still renew that. Okay.
Or Oklahoma.
Or Afghanistan.
Okay, thanks.
No, you can initially register it, and then you can, we are working on our facility. The renewals online is a challenge with our current system. You can initiate it and pay for it online to some degree, but then renewals, there's a little quirk that we have not been able to work out with the novel line we have now. And it's another quirk with where we were going, because each component of each thing, that last time Alicia and I looked at it, was that you had to pay each one individually. It would not charge you your whole amount that you owe. And like most people, if you're given multiple things to pay, you're going to pay the least expensive one and like ignore the rest of them, which is how our original business license became a problem. We had to pay for a substantial amount of money to have them merge so that when you got a renewal, you got a total amount due, which included all three parts.
So I can't pay from Arkansas.
No, right? You can't pay. Mm.
Well, can they do it? I mean, what's the answer to Ms. May's question? Can they do it virtually?
No, what I'm hearing is you can only pay for permits online, not
But you
Business
could
license.
register, but send a check to the city.
Yes.
right.
Okay. Mr. Segrich and then Ms. Malega.
With the foreclosure registry, so if just a homeowner is struggling to pay their bills, bank starts to foreclose on them or gives them a Liz pendants or something like that, those people are required to go on our registry.
Technically, yes, but if you recall, we've had 2 discussions so far on amendments or changes to the vacant registry program. And I put together a list of all the if, then, what, whatever
No good.
process. And Ms. Linehan and I are trying to work through that. You will be seeing something eventually. We're probably not going to be able to do as much if then special consideration for different people because of equal protection challenges. But we are going to be bringing back to you a revised version. And also between all we really discussed last time was who was required to register. We didn't get to any of the ins and outs, and this has been going on for like 6 or 7 years, what the person owning the vacant property needs to do to ensure it doesn't become a nuisance. That's a whole nother bag of worms. And we put in what we thought we heard the last time 2 times ago, and we brought forward what the previous commission was suggesting, and you all felt it was a little draconian and onerous. So we revised that, and you'll be seeing that probably in the next couple of months. I suspect that you will think that what we've listed in that ordinance is probably onerous, but you can, since it's not adopted, you can tell us what parts of it you want, which parts you don't want.
Sounds good on that. And then maybe, Mr. City Manager, can we get a tally how much we paid for the software license for this Naviline and the implementation that's going on at some point? Thanks.
Okay,
Next.
carry on. Oh,
Oh,
I'm sorry, Ms. Malega.
Okay, so I guess I'm a little confused on why we can't, because just today
Can't what?
renew or go from Afghanistan and renew our license because, or Arkansas. Just today I went online to renew my residential parking decal, and I logged into my portal and I brought up my past 3 years and I uploaded my new registration.
One at a time.
I uploaded my driver's license, and literally within 2.5 hours, permits ready pay. So,
It's a different whole software system.
but I don't understand why, if we're one entity, and I hear what you're saying, why, if we're one entity and we have parking permits, why can we not have the same functionality for your department? Is it a disconnect between IT and what your department needs? Because it's super user friendly versus the antiquated system 10 years ago where I had to print it out and go to the parking people and turn it all in. Literally within 2 hours, everything was approved and done, and now I can pay it.
We are looking at some of that. There's a click to gov function that only does co-compliance, business license and permits. And that's how you can pay online. There were quirks where it would not charge you necessarily the correct amount of what was due. We also went away from click to gov for planning, zoning, preservation for whatever reason. And so we have to buy that back. We are in discussions, and we would be more, can we go back to looking at, since this new system, if we're going to handle all this, do we go back and pay the funds that are necessary to get that system back up, the current one, that will allow us to do more payments online? We anticipated that this was going to be rolled out for our department no later than January.
Well, what I'm saying is I don't understand. Again, I'm not a tech person at all. Why I can renew a parking permit and my own portfolio, my little own login has all my information from years previous, but I can't do that for my business when the business is an LBTR number.
Right. Well, and I'm probably going to get this all wrong, and Ellie will kill me, but we went to, I believe, what's called Paymentus, which is a way to pay by credit card for the utilities, and they're in Noveline. Well, Paymentus did not communicate with our portions of the Novaline system. There was another credit card servicer. We spent probably 6 months working on rolling that out that would allow us to take credit cards for much of what's in the department. However, Novaline has some sort of proprietary function where you can only have one type of credit card servicer in the system at any one time. And then the fee they wanted to charge us, as an example, it was a percentage of what was owed, and it was astronomical what people were going to be charged to use the Paymentus system to pay things online. And we just felt it was not, I mean, we would probably get more complaints. You're going to charge me what to service a credit card? It was crazy, the amount.
It sounds to me, honestly, city manager, that there is a major disconnect in the IT department and the different departments' needs. Because it seems to me if one division can do it and it was very simple and I could upload my documents and literally everything went very smoothly, why the parking division should be able to do that and not the people who really need it.
Well, because unfortunately, Mr. Perry hasn't been as long as I have been. We're not throwing IT in the bus. They have been trying very, very hard to work with us.
I'm not
Again,
putting under the
the
bus. I just
system
feel
that
like
you use is completely separate from Novaline. But we have multiple we have RecTrack and we have a decal. There are several software management programs that they have, but everything we have is pulled off a property file, which all has to stay in Novaline. And that's where all the financial records sit as well. And it does have a lot of limitation because it was originally purchased in 2004.
Mr. Perry.
Madam Mayor, I think Mr. Waters did not send his job trying to explain that. But what I'll do is during the budget session, we get to have IT provide an overview of the softwares, or if you like, I can get a separate summary that we can provide before the budget. But either way, we can have the IT person provide some type of summary of what the issues are and what we need to fix it.
Well, there's so many. Yeah. Well, we're just finding that out. Okay. Oh, Mr. McBoy. And then Ms. May.
Just, and I think Commissioner Segridge started this line of thinking that, and it's similar to Ms. Malega's also, the available software and the ability for software to talk between software. I mean, you got artificial intelligence that will do who knows what, but even way before that, APIs, things that talk between things have existed for quite a while. And it's very frustrating for us at the elected official who deal with the public to not be able to look, boom, 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 let's make this go. Whatever it is, figure out what the obstacles are. And if it means that we got to use the software that parking uses, let's use the software and find some enterprising teenager to write an interface to our financial records or whatever. It is doable, guaranteed. It is doable. It may not be commercially available, but it is doable. And I understand there's security needs and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But
Thank
let's please, this is a plea. Let's figure it out.
Ms. May.
So the next common violations, we had an email from a constituent, resident. I don't know if it was forwarded to you guys, but they had a good point because they're talking about the bulk, the trash, the debris, the dumpster requirements, the illegal dumping, all of that stuff. And this goes to all of us and to Public Works and to our budget session. We need to do a better job of that as the city. We need to set the standard. So when we drive by a city-owned or a CRA-owned property and all of these things are happening on our properties, how does that look to the resident who we say, you have to comply or you're getting liens and fines and we're not going to tell you and this, that, and the other, and you're on 87 bad apple lists, but we're not doing it. So we need to make, and this is my plea from our residents, but we have to do that. We have to be better. We have to take care of our own backyard, literally. And then we can expect the others to do it as well. But it's unacceptable. And I know that's not your department.
Correct.
However, you're the eyeballs.
Right.
You guys drive around and you see it. I mean, I can't, 1515 North Federal, I don't care if they're on blast. every single week there's mattresses.
Correct.
Now, that's not our property, but right down the street, there is our property, and we had a broken fence on our property for 2 months. So when you guys see it, will you please
We
let
do.
Public Works know?
We do.
And like I asked Mr. Brown last year during budget season, and I'm going to ask again this year during budget season, what do you need to make this happen? Because what he said, they were fine. They don't need anything. Everything is good. And I don't agree with that because clearly it isn't. But we need to, and this is not on you guys, but if I'm at least asking because you're the ones driving around,
Mhm.
please report it because we need to know what the conditions of our properties and honestly, the garbage trucks are driving around every day too. It's not like they can't see it. And we need to, as a commission, make that a priority,
I have,
in my opinion.
in the past, I've asked that maintenance schedule be created for our public properties, for the city-owned
Mhm.
properties, so we can have a schedule for them to be maintained at a certain time. I haven't seen the maintenance schedule.
That
and
sounds like a
we
lovely
hear that-
plan.
We hear that a lot. You're asking us to do this, but
Right.
this looks like, we hear
Yeah,
that
and
all the
it's- and-
time.
Well, and they're not wrong.
Legitimate,
We
right.
hear it.
They're not wrong at all. So, I mean, I think that as a commission, hopefully I'm speaking for all 5 of us when saying that our properties need to maintain the level of care that we expect of our residents.
And along those same, I agree with you completely. And along those same lines, is code enforcement only complaint generated at this point? Because one of the things that I hear and that I also think about, you guys are the ones on the street driving around, bless you. If you see, I mean, let's just, the example of a pile of mattresses. okay?
1515 North Federal.
15, whatever. We all have our favorite spots. Or just a code violation. I mean, do code enforcement officers out there initiate code cases?
We initiate code cases, officer generated cases, and
Right.
we have complaint case, we have PBSO case, we have utilities cases.
Mhm.
They submit complaints to us. But yes, we
Do your
do.
folks do that?
Not only do we send emails to the proper department, but we send photos. If we see something, if we see shopping carts, we send that to, we have a contact in Public Work or Refuge who we send the picture to and let them know where the carts are. So if we see something, we say something.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Ms. Malika?
Appreciate that.
I just want to say I'm very proud that I have sent 17 code complaints to the
That's
code
all?
department since April 1st.
Oh, yeah.
17 since April 1st. These are cars on the streets, mattresses. Because you know what? When residents call, I go out, I make sure
Mhm.
that it's a legit thing, and I will send the code with a picture. Mostly I put good pictures in, but it's up to us too.
Mhm.
Like you
Yeah,
said, I
we all
mean,
do
we
it.
see something,
We all do it.
we all have to make sure together that we do it, right? And I agree with you on our lot. I have a lot in District 1 that continues to be dumped on, and the only way we're going to stop it is if we fence it, because it's a huge lot that is up to a dead end.
Is that South C Street?
No, this is
Oh, that one. Okay, yeah.
way down, 14th. But I agree, if we all have to work together, because it's, it's the only way it's going to help you and the rest of the team is us being eyes on the streets.
Thank you.
Wait,
Yes,
I
ma'am?
like that idea. Did you write that down about the maintenance plan? Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Segridge.
I was going to bring it up as part of the policy discussion, but I agree with Commissioner,
Jump the gun.
May on, I really would like our city to adopt a policy where we actually follow our own rules and have some sort of accountability to those departments and staff that are responsible for that. It is very difficult to take a phone call from a business owner who's getting cited for a little bit of rust or a little smudge of dirt when we have garbage cans that could kill somebody in our parks. So I really would hope that we as a commission tonight can talk about that as part of a policy direction to give to staff.
Okay.
Ms. Bryant?
Okay. Just to touch on what Commissioner Seger said, I really would like to reiterate, if you have someone who complains to you about their property and say, oh, code cited me for these minor issues, please give us a call to find out the history and the
Mhm.
facts regarding that case, because a lot of times they're not going to tell you the complete story about what's going on with that property.
I go through Click2Gov and I read through the whole thing and so on. And there are many instances where we have people cited for things that our city it itself is violating. And it's not that those people are wrong,
Mhm.
you know, not that they are correct, right? Right. It's not that they shouldn't be cited.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that at all.
Okay.
I'm saying it's very difficult to be running around like the emperor's new clothes,
Mhm.
where, you know, we're citing people for mulch around a tree. Go look in any one of our parks. We do not follow our landscape code. People are getting cited for tree abuse, yet our landscapers are cutting the roots out of our palm trees and killing them. You know, so there's, I don't want to belabor the point, but I am not in any way saying that you guys are doing the wrong thing.
Okay.
It's making your life more miserable because we, the city, are not adhering to our own standards we're setting. And it's leading by example, right?
Right.
So if we were the shining city on the hill and every one of our properties were absolutely spick and span perfect, I'd say we have every right in the book to go around and make sure that everyone else brings up to that standard. But when we're the worst on the block, it's real tough. In some cases, yeah. And briefly on the dumping, instead of a fence, I'd rather see an LPR camera and arrest people. Because I really hate that we tend to close things off, amenities off where we're having problems versus holding the bad actors accountable. So anyway, but thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am, sir.
We've been discussing the cameras for a while. As a matter of fact, there's a request down at the purchasing department now for us to purchase cameras that we can put up in the electric utility department has agreed to be the person that will put them up for us. So we are pursuing
Working
that.
on
So
it.
just let you know that.
And that's the thing, a lot of things are happening in the background that we don't know about. And it's good to know when we find that stuff out.
Jamie brought us a program
Yep.
about that from, I think it was West Palm Beach was
Yep.
doing something like that.
Okay. Active code cases and open liens.
Okay, so one of the complaints we've heard was we're citing in one area
Right.
and not others. So we wanted to create this map to show where we have code cases. And as you can see, they're in every zone. So there's not one zone that's cited more than the others. They're all over. Okay, so we have 1,116 open liens and we have active code cases, correct? The active code cases is 476.
476 active cases right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And of course, I hear from people east of Dixie that we only care about the people west of Dixie, and the people west of Dixie only tell me that the people we care about the people east of Dixie. So
Right,
everyone had that's a good visual. Thank you.
right. Thank you.
It does.
Okay. Now, the lien fine reduction scale is a policy. It's not ordinance, it's not statute, it's a policy that we have internally. Actually, we created this policy as a code team and we ran it by legal and they gave us the go ahead for this policy. So 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 4 years of violation, they'll receive the maximum reduction for fine reductions. New owners, I explained this to the gentleman I spoke with on yesterday. New owners automatically get the maximum reduction. We do not want to penalize new owners for coming into our city, purchasing property and fixing up our property. So they get the maximum reduction and they're also allowed to submit receipts. I oftentimes tell them, wait until you fix up the property, save all your receipts, and then submit those so they could be used towards your reduction. And then we'll give you the maximum reduction on top of that. So once they hear those things, they're more willing to work with the city and purchase those derelict properties.
And just for the public, well, the money that if you save your receipts, the money that you spend in coming into compliance gets automatically reduced from the top of the fine. Then you get the.
We also have caps
Mhm.
that an
Right.
existing lien
Right.
cannot exceed a
1/3.
certain percentage of the value of the property when it was placed, the year.
Right.
And then the cumulative liens against the property can't exceed 300% of what the current market value is. the predictability of this lien reduction process, which we spent a lot of time putting together about 13 years ago, has led to a great number of properties being turned over because they can come in and say, what is it going to cost me to buy this property that has hundreds of thousands of dollars of liens on it? And we work it out with them and they can get an agreed order. And it has been very successful getting a lot of bad apple properties into good apple hands.
And I think just to elaborate a little bit, my understanding is the agreement is, you buy the new property, there's $100,000 worth of fines, it'll all be reduced or very, very low. If you bring the property into compliance with an X amount, you can't just get a free ride on that.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Because some of these properties have just sat with liens accruing for many, many years, and then they come in and they want the maximum reduction. Well, you've been a problem property and aggravated your neighbors for all these years. Now you want the maximum reduction. It's not fair. So we try to be fair in what we do. We do not request or suggest a reduction for repeat cases, but that, again, that property owner can come to the hearing and it's up to the discretion of the special magistrate to provide a reduction for them.
Let me ask you a question. Earlier, you said that when it is a repeat, we violate them. We don't set a fine. We recommend a fine.
Correct.
So that's a little bit am I not seeing a bit of a contradiction there?
Say it again, what you just said.
Now I'm confused. Don't ask me. Don't ask me to remember. It's automatic. We say repeat violation within the 5 years. It's automatic. It goes in and but we don't assess a fine at that point.
No.
So you just mentioned fine reduction there's no fine reduction on repeat violations, but it would be, I guess, at the time of the special magistrate, we would recommend X and the owner would say, please do Y.
Okay. So those are two different
Okay.
cases. The initial repeat case is a violation case. That's a violation case. And we suggest a fine amount and it's up to the
original one.
Right.
Yeah.
The original case is up to the special magistrate to agree with it. He can increase it or he can lower it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a fine reduction when they brought the property into compliance.
On the original one, not a repeat. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, repeats.
Well, it's also on the repeat case. If they brought a repeat case into compliance and they want a reduction of fines, we do not agree with giving them any type of reduction, but they could present their case to the special magistrate and the special magistrate can give them a reduction if he or she chooses to.
Okay. And just so the folks know, those special magistrate orders can be appealed in circuit court.
Correct. Yes, we will do that.
I'm sorry, Ms. Malega? And then
So-
Mr. Segridge.
If this is a policy,
Mhm.
does the special magistrate adhere to our policy? Or can he just make whatever decision he wants?
Wait, what was it?
It's like any judge. Actually, a judge, he's independent. He or she is independent and they will listen to the prosecutor or the city attorney or the city staff. But ultimately, they're going to hear the other side and they'll make a decision.
Correct.
But they can make whatever decision they want.
Correct.
Okay.
They're
So
independent.
with that being said, I think somebody who's in violation for 4 years should not have their fine reduced all the way down to 10%.
Is it 10% of the fine or to 10%?
To 10%.
10%.
10% of the fine after.
So I'm a huge favor of rewriting this because if you have been a nuisance to your neighbor, if you've lowered the value of the people in the community, if you've made staff do paperwork and time, why in God's green earth do I want to give you a 90% reward,
And I'm not,
in my opinion?
okay. And I think that.
So especially if the judge dude that we're paying, by the way, is going against the city's recommendations.
I think one of the things to take into consideration though is what the violation is. If it's in 4 years because one thing is wrong and then it's not doing all those bad things.
in 4 years, if you don't have especially when we have healthier Lakewood Beach and we have resources and we are being a good community partner, in 4 years you can come into compliance. I don't care what your code violation is. So I for one am in favor of rewriting these. I think this is way too lenient, and this may be why we have people who have had liens for 2 years and 3 years, and we're running $100,000 in fines. Because why not?
Is this the current policy that has been set in the past? Okay.
Well, we created this policy during COVID.
Okay.
To help the
Way too
community.
lenient.
And then it was a lot stricter and we
right.
were told that it was too strict, so we created a new one.
Where do we fall in, I guess, in comparison to surrounding cities? I don't care what cities in Broward or in Dade are doing, but if maybe we could have that information, what others
Comparing us to others is a little bit of a challenge, and I'll explain why.
Because we're Lakewood Beach.
Well, our goal was to have properties come into full compliance.
Correct.
So when we go visit a property, we cite for everything that we see. And one case is generated. Many other municipalities do a separate case for each individual violation. And they
So we're already being lenient.
we're already being lenient.
Okay, never
because-
mind.
But
Ms. May and then
yeah,
Mr. Segrin.
he said I could go first, so thank you.
I said that too.
But the one thing I was just thinking about with this is if we have a fine that we are reducing to 10%, maybe the fine itself is too high.
Well, that's one of the arguments.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like if we're going to reduce it 10% of it, I'm not saying that we should lower it, but I mean, if we're really ready to take off 90% of a fine, what's the point of having it that high to begin with?
Oh, some of them are.
I'm just asking, like, what's the thinking behind that?
There are some fines that are, say, $1,500 and they still go down to $150. It just depends on what the fine is. So there's
But my point is, what's the point of having a super high fine if you're just going to knock it down?
not
anyway?
all the fines are super high though. It depends on certain factors as to what the fine amount
Okay.
is. So
Because
All right.
that
I just don't know. I'm just asking
Yeah.
for
the
understanding.
daily amount does not change. So if you have something in violation for 4 years, which is over 1,200 days, and it's running at $100 a day, you're at $120,000 fine.
Yep.
10% of that is 12,000. That some may argue that's too little, but again, we will take whatever paid invoices or canceled checks that you expended, where you expended money to comply your property, and it comes off that 120 in, which reduces it down, and then you can look at based on this schedule, or if it can change, sure, we'll take that in your policy direction. Then you pay what's 10% is less. And people may not like this because 4 commissions ago, they thought that co-compliance liens were going to save the city financially because we had
Right.
$67 million of outstanding liens. Co-compliance is not in the business to make money. We
Not
want you to
revenue.
comply without having to go to the magistrate, without having to pay to do a lien reduction. Our goal is to work with you to come into compliance before a lien or a fine ever starts.
let's go.
Mr. Segrin and then Mr. McCoy.
Thank you. Just for clarity, so if somebody came into compliance, but they just didn't pay their lien, they owe 10,000, they're not on this year's schedule. This is actually still being in violation that we're seeing there. Okay, thank you. And then what do we do to validate that new purchase transactions are in fact arm's length from the original owner?
You want to say something?
Can you specify, like, I'm not selling my property to use my brother?
Correct.
Okay.
Or a related entity. Yeah.
It's a new owner.
Usually what we will do is we will check PAPA, we will check the deed. Usually if it's not an arm's length transaction, your documentary stamps are only going to be $10, or it's going to be a quick claim deed. Arm's lengths are usually for, whatever market value is. If it's LLCs, we'll go to Sunbiz, see if the managing members are the same.
Okay. Yeah. The reason why I brought up one of the cases that I listened in on, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up when the person purchasing the property said they were the personal representative of the person selling the property. And nobody raised that as an issue. Now, I understand that's a unique case, and it could happen if the person selling is absentee in some other country and truly doesn't care and everything else. But it was confusing to me, and the liens on that property were about 1.5 million, I think, as I recall. That was getting reduced down to about 50,000 for them.
That was an agreed order and it was conditioned for sale. That was not just a regular cold case.
Right, but the person buying it was signing for the person selling it, which was it's just interesting. That's
Yeah,
all.
no, it's conditions for sale. It's called a reconsideration for sale. It's a different part of the reduction ordinance. It does pretty much follow the same guidelines, other than we don't use this policy. That particular property has multiple liens. It is still in violation. So in order to get it into the hands of a new owner, which it is going to be a new owner, the people that were here, I believe, were the sellers, the PR for the seller, because the owner is dead. Or deceased,
So
sorry.
then a PR can sign for stuff.
So
But
that was the
the-
seller, that wasn't the purchaser.
Well,
So the
no,
purchaser signed an agreement and that property is going to be demoed. And so that's why we went with what the current accrued fines were. We did do 10% because it is going to a new buyer.
sure, yeah, without really believing, the individual buying it was the personal representative for the seller. They said it.
All right, let's let you go, you'll work that out with.
Okay. So this policy is good, except for with homestead properties. The special magistrate has the discretion to go lower than the maximum reduction for homestead properties.
So apparently we're going to take a look at this policy.
Correct. Okay. All right, so we had a meeting about some more business friendlier policies. The entire code staff was involved in the meeting and they provided some suggestions for what they thought would be business friendlier for us to deal with the community. We wanted commission to look at the no license, no lights rule, because for residential properties, it's very difficult when tenants pay their deposit, they make that down payment,
Right.
and then they cannot get utilities because the owner does not have a business license.
That's a problem.
And it's a problem. So we want you to revisit the no business license, no lights
To
rule.
give you a little bit of history though, the commission that came in November of 2011 wanted to ensure that properties were as close to compliant as they could be before someone moved in. So I think it was maybe 2 years into their administration that we came up with the no license, no lights. At that time, it was onerous. If you didn't have a business license application in, if you didn't have anything, you did not get your lights turned on. We had people out on the street for weeks waiting for
Right.
the property owner to get a business license. It has been moderated twice. It is still not the most business friendly. It meant well. Properties were brought into compliance, really a lot of residential ones, but it is a difficult thing to administer. On the positive side of it, though, if a business entity, and we did not have this, comes in, gives a lease, gets their lights turned on, and starts to occupy a location, if that business is not allowed per zoning or is exceeding what could be allowed per zoning, our only remedy to get rid of them is a co-compliance case and then eventually an administrative order or a legal decision. So this has helped us ensure that properties that are being used for various income producing activities are in compliance with at least the zoning, because that is part of the business license review. It doesn't work the greatest for residential, as Yolanda was describing. Whether we can make a distinction in between no license, no lights for commercial activities versus you can go ahead and get your lights turned on if you're a residential tenant, I don't know, but we can look at that. But as one of the areas, as Yolanda mentioned, we strongly encourage you to give us some latitude to bring back some specific recommendations, because this has not been, at this point, overly business friendly.
But also in 2011, you could go inside a residential property, which is a big that was that's that health safety thing that we no longer are allowed to do. I've got Ms. May, Mr. Segrich, and Ms. Malega.
Is this when we talked about where it would be? So you would have to have a business license in order for them to get the lights turned on. So the landlord would have to.
Well, there's two. If it's a tenant in a commercial entity, the landlord must have a business license,
Mhm,
and then the tenant must have their business license in.
mhm.
So sometimes there's two business licenses that are required as in furtherance of getting the license.
So when you're renting a space as a tenant, wouldn't you find out if the landlord has a business license?
No,
You'd think, right? Or it's zoned for that area, or it's, yeah.
you would be flabbergasted at how much investment has been taken
Yep.
into the city that legally should not have been invested because the person did not do any due diligence. The same thing goes for, and you can check it, Mr. Sedgwick mentioned, click to click, you can check whether a property has business license or not. Our system, again, to complain about it, is not overly friendly in letting you know if all the business licenses that are needed are actually there. It's very cumbersome. And so we do encourage everybody, call us.
Check it.
Get a zoning verification letter, a specific use letter. We try to encourage through the realtors entity to get zoning approvals in advance, administrative use approvals or conditional use approvals for your property, so that when you get the tenant that you want to have, you already have the zoning in place versus putting it on the tenant to go through the whole zoning process, which sometimes can take as much as 4 or 5 months.
Along those same lines, with in my neighborhood, the residential, I'm in a multifamily neighborhood, I'll see a sign, property for sale, 3 units. And I'm like, no. And as a matter of fact, I think I talked to somebody in your department recently. These people bought a house on, I think it was South L Street. They bought a house. The realtor said, you've got a little casita in the back and you can get it fine. Great. You can have an income property. Au contraire, it was a single zone family. They bought this house anticipating having the income from that little rental in the back, and it does not exist. And I think, and I mean, everyone has a job to do and realtors have a job to do, but I have heard more complaints with realtors just saying, oh, yeah, it's Lake Worth. You've got, you can do it. It's already back there. That garage is already there. And that has hurt a lot of people. Mr. Segridge and then Ms. Mulligan.
Thank you. This one in particular branches out real fast when we get into it. So I'm going to try to keep it to this recommendation. I would be in favor of doing away with this rule for residential. I also see the merits of not doing it on the commercial side. There is a huge barrier of entry to our city on the commercial side, and we lose big time on it. And this is an area where I think we need to open up and rely on our other methods of enforcement, because we do want to get things into compliance. But this one in particular, and then on the is particularly egregious with that, because there's
specific.
Let me ask you.
So there's
let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Okay, we're saying they don't get the lights turned on until they get the business license. And I understand that that's tough, but what if guy wants to rent a business and he invests all the money and he gets his lights turned on only to find out that it's not zoned for that use? And then he's got no, now he's invested, he's there, and the landlord said, yeah, it's fine. And it's not. And I know we've had quite a few of those.
Yeah. So, I mean, that happens all the time.
Well, but I mean, but it shouldn't, because if they get the lights on, that's what my point is. If they get the lights on, they feel like they're in business.
We legally cannot turn them off once they're turned on, unless they're like non-payment.
Yeah, but besides the point, whether the landlord turns the lights on or so on, if they're going to start operating their business, somebody gets the lights turned on. That's how that works. No one's moving into a space without power. At that point, when
they're
when they
moving
apply,
with power, and then they're finding out that their business is not zoned for the use that
this will not affect that. It doesn't affect it.
How can that not affect?
Off the clock, moved into their space right over here, the restaurant. Did work, construction, and so on. They did not need to apply for a business license because they were not open to the public yet. They were preparing their space.
That's a different story.
Well, this is a common story. So, they would not have, if all of a sudden they found out they could not be a restaurant there, and there were some stipulations and hurdles they had to go through for their business license that they were not aware of, and it took longer than they expected. But this rule doesn't save people. I would think if you talk to the vast majority of commercial agents dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, this rule hurts more than it helps.
And we used to have a thing. One of my tenants moved out. If one of my tenants moved out, there was a courtesy. This is an electric issue that you could get something turned on in a rental in my name, just without a deposit. Just turn it on so you can fix the place up. That's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We do allow that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how that one happened. And there are a number of businesses
That's a
that allow
temporary
temporary
turn on.
utilities. in furtherance of doing, they have to have an active building permit, or they're doing
Right.
modifications, or for the use and occupancy inspection itself. At that point, it's not, permanent. I think there's some extensions and you can.
Yeah,
have
and it's in the
electronic-
name of the owner, not.
There's-
the
But
tenant.
is also what's associated with a lot of those is a permit, a building permit, which shows what the intended use is going to be, and zoning does look at those. And so, a red flag would be raised if what you're doing under your building permit is not allowed in the district that it's in. That building permit would not be allowed. It would be denied under the zoning standpoint, and you wouldn't be able to move forward that way. I do, there's pros and cons of it for commercial. Other cities don't have it because they don't have their own utility,
Right.
electric utility. So it was a decision made by 3 commissions ago to have this. So, Commissioner
it's-
has brought up is good and bad
Yeah.
with it.
And so, we can sit here and kind of hope and like that agents will know about this rule for us. But the truth is, because it is a little bit special to Lake Worth because we can do it. Almost none of our surrounding cities have something like this. And you don't always have a Lake Worth Beach commercial agent bringing someone in. So if you have
Agent from Fort Pierce.
they're coming out of Miami, good luck. And the agents here don't like working with those guys because they run into all this and they have to work on it, right? It's an education. But in this particular, I think it puts kind of a little bit of a burden on our electric utility. I think it hurts more than it helps us. And we have other mechanisms of enforcing it. Other towns enforce their stuff without this kind of a rule. I would personally be in favor of it, of staff coming back with recommendations, not in residential, not in the business world. The only other branch that I'll kind of touch on from this is the requirement of a commercial space to have an individual rental license and BTR versus the license being on the occupant. And that goes in a number of ways. There are some cities that require, if I have a 4-bay building for warehouses, I have a 4-warehouse building. There are some cities like us that do require that I have my own license to rent out those bays. There are also a good number of cities that do not require that, and the licensing is particular to the business moving in. That particular scenario for us has caused a lot of problems of getting new businesses into our city. And again, it's kind of a chicken and the egg kind of thing. It's leverage, and I know why we did it. We used it as leverage to do things, but some of the scenarios that happen. And I'll give you one. The Parker Commerce industrial area for us, heavy industrial. There was a warehouse building, zoned warehouse and distribution. Client comes in for dry goods, warehouse and distribution. And I have a letter from this individual, and I'll send it to you guys. But to keep it short, it took 12 months for them to get their business license, having nothing really to do with they themselves, very little. And more to do with that overarching business license. All the other bays in that building moving right along, happy with their business license, but the new person that came in got nailed for it. And we do not have an easy way for somebody to definitively tell, I'm moving into this warehouse complex. It's on the up and up with all of its licenses. You'd have to call, you'd have to go through, there's really, you'd have to piece it together. And to, also going back to it, many other of our neighboring cities do not have this structure. So again, you have these businesses coming in, they don't even know to ask. And unless they have a very experienced agent, they don't know any of this. Unless they have a very experienced agent, they run into the zoning problems. And the one thing our city does do really well is that zoning letter. We tell people all the time, pay for the zoning letter, do it before you sign your lease, make it a condition of that. But those two things for me are areas where I would like us to look at potentially removing that. In the last 2 meetings I had with the local retailers and businesses, that came up from almost every single individual, these two items.
Just so I understand, so if I own a business, if I own a building that's a commercial building, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
you're saying only the tenant should have to have the business license?
the commercial building doesn't have an overarching rental license, correct? Because the use is actually what's within the individual bay of that building.
I mean, I'm running a business. I think I've got to pay my taxes to run that business, and it's, I don't know. I guess we just respectfully disagree on that one.
It's just a matter of structure. There's
it's the
many
same with
many cities don't do it that way. We're one of the few in this
And
area
we're
that
looking-
does.
When I got here, we did not require commercial property owners to have a business license, but then it was just a business tax receipt because we had not created the business license. However, and it was not Glenn's office, it was the city attorney we had at the time, told us that if we're going to be charging residential property owners to lease out their properties, we should also be charging commercial property owners for leasing out their property because they're both making an income, and there could be an equal protection challenge in that. Why are we treating residential rentals, which is a form of a business and income producing, different from commercial properties that are generating an income for the property? And we can look at that and speak and get back to you. That's how that came about.
And if that can't, go, I understand the financial aspect of it. It's how do we get that business in there, right? So you've got a company that entered into a lease, and I know buyer beware, right? But you got a company that entered
That's
into a
one of our
lease,
thoughts was
moved
remove-
in.
There's a section in our code that you have to have, gosh, what is this? All violations complied, all building permits closed, all liens paid, on and on and on before you get a business license issued. One of the things we were going to suggest is that because of this, we still require the commercial property owner to have a business license, but their lack of it, which it gets into some of the use and occupancy requirements and inspections, is that something that you'd be open to opening up so the tenant can get their license, even if the property owner doesn't have theirs, and we can do a code case. And that's what we were thinking might be an avenue to go.
I think that's a great compromise to
where
what's
you're
being said.
going. And we'll get them use and occupancy. You want to go ahead and jump into that?
Well, actually, just one second. Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So as somebody who has, again, built a business here 16 years ago in a historical building, it's up to the business owner to do their research. And it's up to the real estate agents to do their research if they want to sell or lease property in our city. I do a lot of loans with a lot of banks. It's up to me to know what bank's stipulations I have to follow for my clients to get that loan. I don't put it on the bank to figure it out. With the state taking as many controls as they can from us, this city cannot be a free-for-all. And I am very business friendly. But at the same time, we can't, once a business has their lights and they're open, we have many businesses in this town that don't have a license for 2 years. And guess what? We can't do anything about it. They just get to run amok in our city. So to me, the more controls that we can have of making sure we have the right business owners doing the right things at the right time and knowing what Lake Worth Beach expects of a good business and a good landowner, I think is a win. I do like your compromise because when I went to renew my license for downtown, I found out that my landlord, I won't call him up by name, hadn't renewed his license. So then my license was on hold for almost 8 months. So if you're collecting rent in this city, if you're making money, in my opinion, you are running a business, you should have a business license. By the way, that business license is also a tax write-off, just so you know.
Okay.
So I am not, and especially on the residential end, this is the only control we have from slumlords. We can't go in and do inspections. We can't follow up on life safety issues unless the tenant allows us in the door. And right now we have overcrowding that we're dealing with. For me, for those lights to be turned on, I want to make sure that that building is adequate and has the safety components that it needs. I understand we can do construction, which you were saying earlier, if somebody's doing a build out, turn the lights on during the build out. But to me, I like the protection for our city, for our residents, and for our business owners. I don't think that we should throw it out.
Okay.
I think we should tweak it a little bit. Like you were saying, find a meeting of the minds, especially if it's a landowner who is just not renewed the license. It shouldn't hinder the person who just signed the lease on getting their business license. But I think that we still need to make that landowner have a license, just open a code case on them, whatever. I agree with that 100%. I will support that.
Okay. So I guess you have direction to go ahead and
We'll
look at
bring
that.
back a couple of options that we've been thinking about.
But not on the residential. I'm just talking commercial. To me, the residential is our biggest problem in the city when it comes to slumlords and I'm not in favor of doing anything that'll.
Well,
help
that kind of goes back to my question of what happens if I don't have a business license?
Nothing.
Well, you could have a code case cited against the property owner, but the tenant that doesn't have a business license operating, we can only cite the property owner. We can do a citation potentially on the tenant.
We can't turn off the electric. We can't turn off the water. We can't padlock them. They can run a business in this city, not renew their license, and there's literally nothing that we can do.
But to piggyback off of Commissioner Signage, they get 2 weeks. Utility gives commercial property owners 2 weeks to prepare for a use and occupancy inspection. So they initiate the utilities. If they do not get a business license, all they do is contact code and tell us, hey, we gave them this time and they still do not have a business license. They cannot turn them off. Once they're on, they're on. We cannot go back and turn off
So
utilities.
then you could have somebody who just says, forget it, I'm not getting a business license. I got one over on you.
Okay, but we can go back and look at the tenant being able to get their business license, because I can understand how frustrating that would be. If I want to rent a bay and the other 5 bays are completely working and I can't get in mine, that would really not be fair.
Right now, those active businesses that are there that have a business license, technically, we're not supposed to renew their license if the property owner doesn't have a business license. Catching that is very difficult with our current system. And it also has provided a lot of confusion to customer service because they'll see active business licenses at that location, but it's not the one for the owner. And so we want to try to help clarify that. So we're going to bring some options to.
Yeah, I think those are good
It
options.
we will need to adjust, I think it's chapter 14, business tax receipts, and a little bit in chapter 2. But I do want to spend some time on use and occupancy inspections, because those are a huge bugaboo as well. When we originally envisioned this,
Are you saying for business or for everybody?
for everybody initially, as I said earlier, it was going to happen every year. It's now every 3 years. And Yolanda was here when we put together, and we had a great plan, and we were going to go and do all kinds of good things. Because we were going to do our commercial inspections in tandem, hand in hand with the Palm Beach County Fire Rescue.
Yeah, we supposed.
And initially they were very supportive of it. And then when it came down to the rubber on the road, they said, absolutely not. So one of our most unfriendly business things is that you get every year a fire inspection, and every 3 years a use and occupancy inspection, or an initial use and occupancy inspection to start a business. You might pass one, but not the other. And that irritates people to no end. I passed my fire inspection, but I didn't pass use and occupancy, or vice versa. So for me, and I haven't talked to staff a lot about this, I would like to bring back to you that if fire is doing their job well and they are doing an annual inspection of all commercial properties, why do we have to go in there? We will do what we can see from the street as part of our use and occupancy inspection. It would free up a lot of the co-compliance time, and it would not do that double indemnity or double jeopardy for the property owner, unless, because the fire is dealing with the inside and co-compliance is dealing with the outside. That's a thought that we had that could be more business friendly. You still might have where you pass one, not the other.
So the mayor's back, but before I pass it back to you, Sarah was first and then Anthony, and I'm done.
So my question is, I like that idea, but would we then ask the fire inspector to then give that report to us so we have a paper trail? And then that would also save the business owner a cost of the inspection? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Because I know when
Yeah.
my place is inspected, they check the little lights and the emergency button. They do a lot of the stuff that I don't think that we would do as a city.
Mm-hmm.
So I do support that. I think that would be more business friendly. If we could get that,
And we
but
have
what if
reports?
but what if they don't have their fire inspection?
Well,
What if they don't follow through with that?
Let's be on the
Yeah,
positive
long
side. A little while.
I am, but
Barry just reminded me, we do get a report, so we do get the results and of the fire inspections. Fire inspection requirements is law. And I think we have a much better track record with the current administration of fire, that they let us know and they start a case. They can start code cases through us that you don't have your fire inspection. In addition, if you fail your fire inspection, there should be a code case that's generated and might end up at the magistrate. Yolanda and I dealt with for 4 years a property, will remain nameless, that had failed their fire inspection for 6 years straight.
I think I know which building
And
it
had
was.
never been taken to the magistrate.
I have a question. So
And
if
they
we,
got pissed when we failed to use an occupancy inspection and started a code case.
so if they fail it or they don't, or let's just say they just don't get their inspection and then fire says, okay, start a case. Do we then, Mr. Lawyer, Mr. Glenn, have the authority to disconnect, padlock? Because now this is life safety. What authority would we have if they don't get their fire inspection or they don't pass their fire inspection?
That's on the fire marshal, really. We don't have the
Correct.
authority to padlock or
Mhm.
turn off.
So even though they would tell us to go ahead and initiate a code case?
And we've had fire inspectors come to our special magistrate hearings
Mhm.
and they've testified, they've presented cases. Nicole was phenomenal when she was working in the city. But another issue with the fire cases, previously they only had one fire inspector
Right.
assigned to Lake Worth. I think they may have two now. They have three now,
Wow.
but 3 fire inspectors is like a lot for what we have here in this city.
And do they check things like the plumbing?
No.
It's really just fire safety.
They do
So-
check plumbing in
like
terms of they have a fire sprinkler system. Have to
Right,
demonstrate
but
that.
in terms of rentals and
toilets
tenants,
and stuff like
does,
that.
right, they don't flush the toilet, and which is like, again, one of the biggest problems that we've had. And when I used to go out in the evening inspections that we did, the toilets weren't working. People were, yeah, no, I understand that, but I'm, right, but that's fire stuff, but no one knows if the toilets are working. That's unfortunate.
Well, hopefully, if you're visiting a property and you'd like to move into it, they test the lights, turn on the faucet, flush the toilet. The number of code cases that were requested of us to generate, Yolanda and I, when we first started here, people would move in and then immediately call code, my apartment is a mess. Okay.
You moved in.
And then they think, and this is where I want the code is a very long process. Just because you call code and code case gets generated, things don't get fixed the next day. And we had many people very angry at City Hall and us that my apartment still is a mess. I'm like, well, the code case is against the property owner. If they don't want to fix their apartment, it'll run in a lien or a fine. And I'm really sorry, but there's nothing we can really do. And it was really heartbreaking to see some of the conditions people were living in and expected us, the city, to try to force it being fixed, and we can't do that.
Who was first, Mr. Segridge or Mr. McVoy? Mr. Segridge, you're up.
Thank you. So William, just for clarity, for your suggestion, basically to paraphrase, are you suggesting that we are either doing away or relaxing the commercial use and occupancy and in favor of just looking at what fire and the DBPR is doing for their inspections and relying on them?
Well, our recommendation would be that we, at least mine, and I'll talk to staff some more about it. Initially, we would accept the fire inspection as the interior inspection, but we still have a responsibility to inspect the outside.
Right.
Okay. And then I guess this could be for you or for Barry. What about how would we potentially become aware of unpermitted work inside? So, somebody moves into that warehouse and they go ahead and they rip a nice big hole in the firewall. And I understand fire should pick that up, but things like that.
I'll let him speak a little bit in a minute, but
We can on commercial.
we do need to rely on a very proactive, knowledgeable fire inspection because they should catch that. In addition, fire should know what is legally allowed use in that building, which does impact what fire regulations apply to it.
Mhm.
When we first got here, there were businesses being inspected all over the city that didn't have a business license. So what was the basis of your fire inspection except for, it could be, it was, crazy. It was, as you described earlier, like free for all.
So, I would be in support of that recommendation as you're trying to put that forward.
But you're not
But
talking
go
about
ahead, Barry.
eliminating the license, just the inspection by the code people.
Yeah, he's talking about the interior inspection, relying on DBPR and
But still have
fire,
to
but
get it, but they still have a good business license for, okay.
Barry Schultz, building official. As it is now, even with UNO inspections, it is hard to catch unpermitted work.
Sure.
We catch obvious things, new air conditioners, new water heaters, things, but it is hard for a use and occupancy inspector to know when they go into a building if they've moved some walls around, things like that. It oftentimes is difficult. Whenever they do a change of occupancy, they're doing a new type of business. It's a much more thorough inspection because I have to grill them on what you're doing here. If you're going from just having a retail to now you're a church and having assembly, there's way more people are there. Then the fire Marshall has to review plans because exit and egress and all of that changes. But oftentimes when someone moves into a space, you see with barber shops are very common. You go and you know they added plumbing, but I mean, really, how do I know? I mean, it was a convenience store and now it's a barber shop. So it is difficult to catch those, but the biggest ones, fire, life safety, are ones that the fire department will catch. Make sure they still have exit signs, make sure that they can get out if there is a fire. And they're gonna report any electrical deficiencies they see as well, because that's under the NFPA through the NEC.
Okay. Yeah, I think that could be, you know, a nice way to streamline things, you know, relax some of the stress on our resources and create a more definitive process for our businesses coming in, a more streamlined process. So.
And save our resources. Mr. McBoy.
I'm hearing general support from my colleagues here for the idea that we keep the business license, but we relax the inspection that we do. My only question before I sign on for full support of that we rely on the fire inspection, is from you collectively, what would be falling through the gaps? Things that we probably should know about that might be a problem, but that the fire guys aren't going to pick up on because of whatever reasons.
Plumbing.
And
I think the biggest one, and this is what we experienced when I first got here and still continue, has the building on the interior undertaken the appropriate work with appropriate building permits to allow the uses operating there? Fire has not been great at catching that. Like if something's been, like if they go in, but the biggest one we had, I was so happy they caught it. There was a retail establishment that put in a whole commercial kitchen and became a restaurant. No permits. Fire caught it. But that's, you know, things like that that were just egregiously in your face. But we have a lot of businesses that have never gone through the formal use and occupancy change to allow the use that is actually operating there. And I can give you examples that I've seen that, you know, it was a house at one point and now it's all of a sudden a store. And it's passed fire inspections and such, and it's probably from a fire safety standpoint, okay, but it probably never met all the requirements for use and occupancy change under the building code.
But I think I heard from Barry that even for our inspectors, that can be difficult to detect.
Sure.
So I guess what I'm looking at is, if we were to adopt this approach, which I can see all sorts of practical reasons, makes it a little easier for the businesses, it reduces staff time and so on. We may get a bigger bill from the fire department, but that's separate. We'll hope they don't notice.
People pay for their inspections.
Okay, so that's not a problem. I'm just concerned, are we going to be letting, because we're relaxing our inspection a bit, our approach, are we going to put ourselves at much risk for much, you know, noticeable bad stuff? Or is this like, yeah, some stuff might come through, but it's 0.01%, it's not worth worrying about?
We can provide a checkoff sheet and to the commission, and it lists what we're looking for in our use and occupancy inspections. And maybe you can collectively decide on what you want. Since you're talking about plumbing, Madam Mayor, on that checkoff sheet, it talks about plumbing on that sheet. So you can collectively decide on, if you want us to continue to do the inspections, what you want us to look for.
But my question is a little different. Because I think what we're considering is not changing what's on the list. We're considering not doing the list at all for the commercial ones, which is, you know, maybe that's okay, but I'd like some sort of a ballpark assessment. How much stuff are we likely to be letting slip through the sieve by doing that? An insignificant amount, or, oh boy, you know, it could be 10-15% of stuff that some bad stuff goes through that the fire guys don't look for. But it is, you know, we should be
almost impossible to give you a quantifiable number. However, qualitatively, much of our city is non-conforming. Much of it is older. Much of it has not been maintained well. What the use and occupancy officers do find is like, where do you need to do some remedial repairs inside that are not a fire related, are not fire, we will likely not have that ability anymore. The impact on the overall community, I don't know. We've had a lot of investment in the city. Many buildings that were completely derelict that were being used are now fixed up and they're being used again. But we couldn't give you a definitive number. Because if it were a new community, it'd be much easier. But
Sure,
we
but we're
have
not.
a preponderance of nonconformities in the city.
Maybe a thought before we fully adopt and say,
Right.
go ahead and let it go, our own inspection. Maybe think about what mechanism might we want to have to try to get some of those without going to doing every single one gets the inspection. And I don't know what that is, and maybe that's not
I think it'd be
possible.
helpful if we compare what the fire department's looking at, maybe their checklist and the one that we have. And then let you
Yeah.
see where they cross over, because they do have some crossover.
Bobby was just stating that one of the code officers did a use and occupancy inspection.
This week and
Usually my,
Introduce-
it's okay.
Bobby, code compliance supervisor. One of our inspectors conducted a use and occupancy inspection this week. And the license was, I don't remember what it was for, but when he went inside, they had other activities going inside that business that was not on the license. They had the gambling machines, they had all kinds of different items. So that's what we also catch when we go in there. If they have ATMs or anything that they need additional licensing for.
They need a license for an ATM?
Yes.
Huh.
Well, hold on. That like too often interchangeably, a BTR, business tax receipt, and a license are used interchangeably. The business may have a business license, but listed under all the principal uses, primary uses, and accessory uses. And an ATM would be an accessory use to other business, so it would be an additional line of BTR that you're paying to the city.
So you paid a little extra. Ms. Moga.
So what I'm hearing is, and this is maybe something that we can get consensus on. If it's a new business, then I think we should do the first use and occupancy to make sure that those things aren't happening. And then every inspection after the fire department. I think that way we know, and we at least have a little more control over the gambling machines. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
I think that we should really consider as a dais, us having that first time inspection and staff being able to lay hands on what's happening in there. Are the toilets flushing? Is the electricity? You know, when I opened my gym, they came to do my inspection and they said, you don't have a utility sink. I said, why do I need a utility sink? It was mandatory. And I'm like, I have one closet. So I had to find the smallest utility sink in the universe to put in before I could pass my use and occupancy. I had no idea that I needed that. But I do think that there is validity in at least us doing the first use and occupancy inspection to make sure that the business is set up for success and that our residents and our businesses are protected. And then going forward, every 3 years rolling into the fire inspection, because we know at least
We have a baseline.
we've done our job.
Right.
When we inspected it, we've got pictures. We know that we checked all the boxes.
Mhm.
We're protected. And then moving forward with the fire inspectors, I would like to see that.
I like that.
We have also suggested having the property owners do an affidavit stating that and putting it in their hands, let it be their responsibility, stating that everything in my property works. I have no issues with the property, and they sign and have that affidavit notarized. We've also suggested that. in
The owner or
past
the
as well.
tenant?
The owner has to state.
And the affidavit would
That's a-
state that my gambling machines are fully legal.
I mean, my neighbor just signed and said that he lived in the house that he's been renting for 10 years. So, I mean, that to me is no,
Probably
I'd rather
homestead
us lay
fraud.
eyes on it.
It's a very, very optimistic approach. Mr.
Okay.
Segridge.
Oh,
I would agree with the first
Yeah, I think
initial
that's- okay.
inspection.
And then
And
check the plumbing. That, I say that all the time.
We have
No, I
consensus.
love, Mr. Vigoy has not,
No,
you did, okay.
I'm a little worried that you get the initial and then a couple years later and
But we
I
can't go
saw
in.
some facial
Fire
activity.
departments are going, and this is just commercial ones, it's not residential, unless it's like has a common area element, like for a big apartment complex.
Mhm.
But they would be seeing it, oh, you jumped over.
But they don't do residential, they don't do small residential?
No.
Oh, it's just business.
Yeah.
Well, for the
Oh, yeah.
commercial.
So I'm also under our code, I mentioned it earlier, for a business license to be issued, basically the property has to be perfect.
The
No
which
open-
of the problem?
Property
The
has to be
property has to be
perfect.
perfect. No open liens, no violations, no open permits, no expired permits, that sort of thing. That can be tough. And so we would,
I like this suggestion.
if you are open to us relaxing portions of that, then we can bring back further study because I didn't want to go down that road and spend a lot of time on it if you were not open to relaxing that component of it.
So this is, if the owner has things, we might say, okay, that's okay. The tenant can go
And we've
ahead.
already determined that the tenant business license for a commercial, we'd have to write a stipulation that would obviate that kind of part. But for residential and commercial property owners, for them to get their business license, that all has to be in compliance. And that's part of what's looked at in the use and occupancy inspection.
Right, and it's everything down to like every little tiny thing. So they were suggesting just be the they still have to bring everything into compliance within 6 months, but don't hold up opening the business.
But again, what if they don't? That's always my
Then a
concern.
code
Like,
case gets generated.
but then the
Or
code
formal one.
defines.
They can't turn off the electric.
Right, so I know that it's onerous, but again, somebody who's literally had to go
It's a
through it on a
business.
historical building. I had to go before the planning and zoning and the historical board to get my use and occupancy and for the building that I wanted to go into. If you want to be in that space, I think that this is our one shot to make sure that that building is legit and not in code violations. I'm not trying to make it harder, but I also know that the state takes away a lot of control. And if we only have a little bit of control, I would hate to see us.
Yeah,
go
but
the
I
other
hate
way.
to see businesses not be able to open because of like I don't want to call them little things, but kind of
Like what?
like the sidewalk is cracked.
Would that?
Yes, that would prevent it from being opened. Yes,
that's
the sidewalk is cracked, or they don't have like they don't have like their sign permit finished, which takes 8 years anyway. Why can't we? Why can't we have
Well, that's on building.
why can't we have a 6 month? A 6 month temporary sign, stick up a sign. Like,
Well, you can have banners.
no, you can't.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
And you can have temporary signs.
And you
Yes, you
can
can.
get those and you can, you
Yes.
can open up with a banner.
Yeah, I had one. You can have a banner.
Okay,
While your
so
sign,
good.
while your sign's in.
But there
production.
are little things like the sidewalk or something like that that would prevent a business from being open. And I
that's where
just
we
think
look at
that's
the
kind of
general
silly.
Property maintenance.
Right.
section of
And the
code.
business, like, let's say I'm taking over for another business that's been open for 20 years with the cracked sidewalk.
Mhm.
I'm trying to open my business and I can't because of
Right.
the cracked
Yeah.
sidewalk.
That's life
That's
health
not fair.
safety.
All right,
That's
everybody's
life health
here.
safety.
We've got
That's
8 people talking at once. One at a time, kids.
Cracked sidewalks can become life health safety. Tripping hazard. Yeah.
But there are also sidewalks walking from the sidewalk that we own to the
Into the
front door
building.
or areas of a sidewalk that are on private. property.
That's the one
Yeah.
Commissioner May meant.
Madam Mayor, if I could just interrupt, I wanted to clarify if we had consensus for
Sure.
the suggestion for Commissioner Maliga.
Yes,
I know that she agreed and Segrich did, but I didn't hear everybody else.
I agree.
everyone has
I
agreed.
think we're all on board on
Yep.
that.
Just wanted to make
Thank you. That's
So
why
how
you're a
did you-
master
How
clerk.
did you specifically want it to be then, William, where they could open with what?
Well, I think, and this is going to be more work for staff, and I hate to put that on them, but we could differentiate between life safety issues from a code case and things that are just general repair and maintenance. I do think we could look at our general property maintenance and general building maintenance requirements and see if they're possibly a little onerous. By the look of the city, they may not be, but it has caused issues for businesses. I mean, residential
Right.
licenses being issued and tenant. Well, I think we qualify the tenant issue. They can get their
Okay.
license even if the property owner has an
When I
issue.
think if we always go back and we kind of make the city the bar, not literally the bar, but make the city the bar. Yeah, right. Their Christmas shot is going to be like, yeah, she wants to turn the city into a bar.
I know.
No,
Well-
but if the city, if we wouldn't make ourselves do it, we can't make them do it. There's the bar.
Yeah, but that,
Why is
Yeah,
that not?
except I think the city bar is defined sort of not by the actual rules, which if we did, that would work. It's that, we aren't 100% following our own rules. So
But that's
where is
my
the bar?
point. And if we say, oh, well, we don't have the money to do X, well, maybe the business doesn't either. I don't know. I just
well,
don't
I think
I mean, I like the concept.
do as I say, not as I do doesn't work for me.
that one we can spend online on, but we'll try to come up with.
All right, yeah,
something
you
that makes
guys
it
bring something
easier.
back that makes sense.
And we're gonna jump down to sign regulations, which you all took care of part of that. With the murals and the sculpture ordinance that you passed, will go into effect soon. The reminder is that because of the various building performance and a community appearance standards that have been in effect forever, the amount of signage on a building is commensurate to how big the building is based on its frontage to the street. And the complaint we get all the time is, why do I have to get a survey? Well, the square footage of the sign is based on the linear footage of the building facing the street. How do
Get a measuring tape. Why do they
Yeah.
need a
All
whole
right,
survey?
Or if there was a survey, I mean, every building has a survey somewhere in the property files of the city. One would think when the building was built, one would hope.
If we
the
have
ci-
it. And we
If
do-
they're
and we
there.
do have an affidavit. It doesn't have to be an absolutely current yesterday, tomorrow survey. If you attest that it's accurate, and if it has some deficiencies in it, you have to let us know. But that's the only way, and we don't have the staff capacity to go out and measure all the buildings and figure out how much signage they can have.
They could measure.
They
The
can
owner.
measure, and then I guess we could create something that delineates, how they measure. We tried to do this in inspections on COVID, and it was an utter failure trying to have people do their inspections and provide us videotape, but that's something we can look
But
at.
linear footage, that's not too difficult. I mean, yeah.
You have to own a measuring tape that's longer than
It's the
like
front of the
16
building.
feet.
Right. It's the
We'll-
front
we'll
of
have
the
a side
building.
business.
Right. It's
Renting
not
out.
square
So
footage of the building.
we're let you know that we were going
Okay,
to try
Miss-
to look at.
All right, everybody. Mr. Segridge.
Thank you. I believe we already gave policy direction to do exactly what you're saying a while ago. So we can go back and
What?
check on it to basically allow businesses to get their BTR and their license if there were non-life health safety code infractions present. We voted on that months ago. So, I mean, that's been sitting there for a while. But if we need,
Ask the clerk.
if we need to vote on it again, we can vote on
I
it
just don't
again.
remember.
But
Confirm
that
we did that.
that definitely was definitely on our list because there was some conversation back and forth as to how much effort that was going to be. But I do support that to make sure that we can get business in there because there's cross tenant issues. You got 10 bays in the building and one of the bays are just a bad actor, and then somebody tries to move in new or somebody tries to renew, they're getting whacked because those guys got an issue. There's the landlord that didn't keep up on their maintenance or their parking lots in a little bit disrepair, and now all of a sudden
The tenant can't come
the
in.
tenant can't renew or something like that. To kind of address some of the stuff the Commissioner Malega was saying, like if we lose some of these things, what recourse do we have? The fines are the real recourse. So you didn't have a business license for 8 months. Did you close your doors?
Did I close my doors? No.
Yeah. Okay.
But I was in complete
So
conversation and communication.
there are businesses who moved here who took the ethical stance. I'm not going to open my business if I don't have a business license. So they did things that way, and they were prevented. Now, you could make the position point that says, screw it, just go ahead and open up your business and do it anyway. But they chose to follow the letter of the law. You chose not to.
No, I did choose.
Yeah,
I waited.
she's-
No,
she
I
was working
waited.
with
I
them.
was.
You kept the business closed for 8 months.
Well, I was
she just
waiting for my
answered you.
process.
Mhm.
No, I didn't open the doors until I had my business license.
So you waited the 8 months.
I waited when I first opened my doors.
No, you said the renewal. Your renewal was delayed by 8 months.
No, but I was in constant communication with code. It wasn't me. It was my landlord who didn't have his. I paid for my fine.
100%.
I paid my dues.
100% understood. But you were not given your business license, and so you didn't have a business license.
They cashed my check.
You were
Hold on,
operating.
Yeah, I think
She had been issued an initial original business.
It was a
license.
renewal.
No,
And the renewal, and we don't hold that against the tenant.
we've held up renewals if there's code issues.
Well, they've held up my renewal, but I didn't have to shut my doors because I paid and they cashed the check.
I understand you
And
don't have
you
to
had one.
shut your doors.
And I
but
already had a business license. I already passed my inspections.
other businesses don't ever open because of that.
it's
Not
really-
everyone wants to operate under those conditions.
I think
And so I'm in agreement that we shouldn't put people in that position. You should not have been put in that position where you
it's a renewal. you're talking about a brand
I'm
new
talking
business.
about both.
No, but this was a renewal, an existing business of 8 or 10 years. It's already been here. and the landlord drops the ball.
I understand. I'm also talking about where the landlord drops the ball and a new tenant's coming in. We shouldn't be punishing those people. And that was the suggestion that Mr. Waters is making. I think for things that aren't life, health, safety, we need to get those businesses open. If they, in their little bay in their business, there's no life, health, safety stuff, they're going to pass their fire. They're going to pass everything.
I agree with you, but don't you think it's also on the real estate agent who's making all of the money to make sure that the building is up to compliance?
Yep.
I mean, I
Actually-
didn't say it.
Actually, no.
The real estate
Well, that's
agents make
wrong,
a
then.
ton of money by these contracts being signed. And then the person who's on the hook is the business owner who's put the money out, who can't open the doors. Guess what? The real estate agents on both
Walks
sides have
away.
cashed their checks.
Yep.
The landlord's gotten their money. So it's up to the real estate agent to do their due
So
diligence.
you're putting that on real estate agents who have no idea what our city's rules are.
Then they should find out.
So you're going to punish the business because they hired a bad person. I'm amazed that I'm actually amazed at what you guys are saying. I really think you should go talk to some commercial landlords.
I would
and-
like it would be
and
helpful if
really
you gave us a and I've asked everybody that talks to me about code, give me an address, give me give me an actual what happened to this particular address.
Okay.
I know I overheard someone say earlier they wanted to be out of here by 8 o'clock, and it's way past that, but it wasn't one of us over on this side. But
But
we're not
Sure.
heard a lot, and I think
I'll read one for you.
we have some consensus to get
No, you
things
got
back to you that are along the lines that you
Hold on.
you
Can he
can get a
finish?
little laundry list of stuff, do this, do that,
Right.
because it's based on where we are at tonight. We are going to need to make amendments to chapter 2, chapter 7,
14.
chapter 14,
Mhm.
and chapter 23.
Mhm.
20,
And this goes
Chapter
along with the
23.
code revision that we're talking about in the big picture. Yeah.
which code revision?
The
Oh, the big one, yes.
Yeah.
That, and then we are also working on the landscape code revision,
Right.
and we just got not authorization, but some edict from the state today about artificial turf finally.
Oh, did we?
Well, we'll bring it forward as fast as we can. And then, but chapter 23, remember, has to go before the planning and zoning board and the preservation board before it comes to you. Once we have quantified what all we'd like to bring forward, then we can create a schedule of how we can chip away at all this, because some things will have to follow other things so that we don't have conflicts and a blank show.
Sure.
Can I ask a
I wasn't.
We got so many lights on.
I wasn't finished.
I don't think Mr. Sigrich is finished.
And you asked me to give you specific examples. I'm going to read you a specific example. This is a letter that comes from a gentleman named David Kratka. He brought a business to us, bringing 28 employees into our city, high-paying jobs. When looking
What's
for
the
a commercial,
address?
I don't have the exact address. It's in the Park of Commerce, Mayor. I think you're being a little dismissive and rude
No, I'm
with,
just-
by
no,
demanding
I'm
that.
not.
It's.
Because when people come to me and say, I have a problem with
I'll
code, I
read
always
it.
ask for specific.
When looking for a commercial property to rent, the time can often be important, and lots of reasons. We need to move and don't want to risk losing the space to a different tenant. We probably be the most common. The property owner is anxious to begin the lease so he can start collecting rent. The renting tenant assumes that the space meets city licensing criteria, as other similar tenants are actively working within that building. From day one, renting a large space, most tenants begin making improvements and occupying it. Within 48 hours of signing the lease, we went to the city to get their business license and were informed there were some code issues that would prevent them from getting their license. This was something totally out of the tenant's control. It took close to 12 months, but the owner was finally able to get all of their concerns corrected. And then they were finally issued a license. The city is anxious to attract good, successful businesses to the area. It should be more accommodating in recognizing that the businesses renting a space cannot possibly be aware of all the ghosts behind a property and should not hold the tenant hostage for problems that are out of their control. There should be a way to separate the rules for the two entities. And I think that's all that we're asking. I think it's extraordinarily narrow-sighted to say that it should be the real estate agent. Of course, the real estate agent should know everything. That's actually not how it works in the state of Florida. Real estate agents are first transaction brokers, which means that they actually have no fiduciary responsibility to either side. You're shaking your head. Do you know what a transaction broker is?
Yes, of course I do. And I'm just
Okay,
saying, I think
and
it's
do
a
they-
shame that that's,
Do they have a fiduciary responsibility?
I
No.
think it's a shame that that's.
Okay, so that is the rule. That is the law. So a real estate agent has no fiduciary responsibility, which means the real estate agent is not responsible to, one, determine the zoning, determine the code issues, anything. They can actually get in trouble if they stick their nose in that. That's the job of the tenant, the landlord, and the lawyers in the state of Florida. Unless a real estate agent signs a buyer's agency agreement. And that is the only case in the state of Florida where they have a fiduciary responsibility or a seller's agent. So no, your premise that the real estate agent should know this and should be the one responsible is 100% incorrect. Secondly, with that, our city has different rules than a lot of other cities. You cannot know all the rules or expect an agent to know all the rules. Now, it would be nice if they did. And we do enjoy when they work with a seasoned real estate agent here who knows Lake Worth Beach, and they catch a lot of this. But I'll let you know that particular transaction was between two of the most senior real estate agents in the city of Lake Worth Beach, and it still got missed, and it still took 12 months to get those 28 people working, which is shameful. That's why we need to look at this and say, can we deal with the landlord? Can we get businesses started? And is it the end of the world? And I'll tell you, the things that were the issues here were a front door.
Well, that's my point. Yeah. What were the?
It was a front door. It was a door on a firewall, which got corrected right away. It had something to do with the landscaping in the parking lot and some lines. Right.
And it took them a year to fix that?
Yeah. And you know why?
Did it take the landlord a year to fix it?
Because the city required well site plans in order to do landscaping and things like that. They went back and forth. They were having trouble classifying things, the usual things of we ask a question, we get an answer 30 days later. Yeah, it took a year. And you had
Well, then I think that's really the problem.
you had two professional agents working on it every day. You had a landlord working on it and a tenant and city staff. And it still took them all a year to figure this out. And by the way, these were a dry goods warehouse and distribution use. You know what the use is for zoning for that building is? Warehouse and distribution. But the other problem, and I'm sure William can attest to this, is that most of our uses there require conditional approval. We don't have enough usage by right. And that's a whole nother discussion for another day. But I can't stress enough, it's not the real estate agent is going to be responsible for this. It's just, you can hope and pray that you get a great one that knows these things, but it's actually not required by law. And
your example says that even with two of them on it,
it can happen. It happens a lot less, but we do need to figure out a way, like Mr. Waters was suggesting, to say, let's get these businesses in there if it's not life, health, safety.
I agree.
And I think we all mostly agree with that, but we can't just like take the stance. They should know it. I'm upset by it because
that's the estate agent.
It's the common misperception. It's the common misconception.
When somebody buys a house, the realtor told them that they can have a ADU in the back, and it's not true. But not just real estate told them that anyway.
And it's not just because I'm an agent. I sat with 19 business owners yesterday, and every single one of them brought this up as one of their number one issues. Okay. And the city is losing businesses because of it.
Okay, Mr. McVoy.
I will jump in slightly.
Yeah, but I think Ms. Maleg's light was on first. I have to tell you.
Were you first?
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
she was.
Sorry.
So I don't want you to take this personal, but in my honest opinion, if you are a professional, you should know what your profession is. That's all I'm going to say.
He's saying he does.
It's the law. What you don't understand, it's the law.
You can also do diligence. And this is honestly just for everybody who's listening. Do your due diligence and make sure that the person that you're signing a lease with, like you said, can I have this business here?
And check with the city because the real estate agent is going to tell you.
Violations. I mean, I just took over a lease of an existing 20-year business in Lantana just to have the fire guy come in and say, these doors need to do this. And I'm like, you didn't tell him that for 16 years. I went through it. So I've been on both sides. And what I'm saying is, if you are in the profession, do your clients a solid and do the research. Because if it is a life safety issue, I am not going to budge on that because life safety issues, that's why they have the term life safety.
Right.
I'm not talking about landscaping, and I don't know why. I honestly think that a lot of our problem is the fact that it's taking however many months
to get a building permit, to get a sign permit, to get plan review done. I think that is a real issue in our city. And I've talked to a lot of the business owners, and I've talked to a lot of, and there are a couple bad apples in this city that are a lot of property owners, and they can pound their chest as hard as they want. Most of them have caused a lot of the violations that they have. So it's not everybody in this city can cry wolf, right? There are some bad actors and bad players in the city, and those are the people that I want to protect the tenants from. You know, no tenant should sign a lease and have to pay rent, and there's no build out and there's no abated rent, and the landlord's collecting the money, and then we're holding up their license. I don't think that's fair or equitable at all.
Yeah.
I think that is awful. It doesn't help with job creation. It doesn't help with economic stability of our city. But at the same time, we have to find a balance, and I support that balance. I just don't support giving a carte blanche. Go ahead, your landlord's got 15 violations, but we're going to let you open your business, because that landlord, he's cashing that check. He doesn't care about those code violations, and he's not all of them are going to run out and be concerned about cleaning up those violations. That is my concern. So how do we find the balance of making sure that the businesses can open their doors and that they can start making money and that they can employ people, but at the same time, we don't have, I will say, unscrupulous, very selfish, immoral landlords doing the wrong thing, because it's our job to protect those tenants as well. And I just think that if staff can bring us a balance on what you think that could look like, I of course want to have the conversation, but I also believe that it's on the real estate agents to do their homework.
Even if they're not required to do so. I think we're all in agreement that if it's not a life safety issue, that should not hold up the tenant going in. I think that's pretty much consent. We have consensus. Two.
One night.
Let's quit while we're ahead. Okay, Mr. McVoy,
I agree that we're going to agree largely, and I think the element of balance is a reasonable one. I think everybody up here is unhappy with the idea that we're holding up new businesses unnecessarily, unreasonably, whatever. So anything we can do to speed up that is a good thing. And maybe separating out what the owner has from what the tenant has is a good thing. I do hear Commissioner Malega's concern that if you open the door and let them go, what is your leverage on the owner of the building?
well, code liens, code case.
And I don't know, it does need to be an effective leverage. I'm very empirically oriented. I want to see businesses doing well. I don't like to see things being held up for long periods. That I may not be a business person, but I totally get time is money if you're opening a new business. So let's make it work. And yes, of course, keep life safety in. But so maybe if you can bring us back, and I don't know how you come up with this brilliant scheme, but some scheme that does not give away the store and give away any leverage, that we still have some.
We've been here a long time, and we do want to protect both interests of property owners and the tenants. And we've had some ideas. We'll probably bring you a half open door, first steps of things. And if that works well, then we can open up the door wider. But once the door is flung wide open, in Florida, we can't close it again.
Right.
That being said, I was just going to ask, before you take this stuff to planning and zoning and HRPB, should
look at it.
Is that what we're doing on the 18th or something of
so.
June? And then you'll take what we.
Well, maybe, because I won't be here that day, and now there will Yolanda. So we have to be.
So why is it on our?
That shouldn't be on our schedule.
It's on our schedule.
Yeah, you need.
They just give us a special.
That don't make no sense.
So we'll run the meeting and we'll let you know what happens. We'll send you memos. But do we have consensus that we should be having this conversation again before it goes to PBC and HRPV?
Yeah.
Okay.
Miss May?
Yeah. And I don't think
May?
we should
Yep, you're
schedule the
done.
meeting
You're done. Miss May?
when they're both not here.
Of course not. We just said that.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear the
You're not-
agreement.
You're just. I think it's, yeah.
I'll be back. I'm patient.
You'll be back?
I'll be back.
That should not be a date then for
Yeah,
everyone.
we need both of you there.
Madam Mayor, I checking that date up.
Okay.
Staff.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Miss May. Oh, your light's off. Mr. Segrich's light is on. We have a budget meeting on the 18th of June.
I had other policy discussion items, but if staff is, or I don't know if staff's done with the presentation or.
No.
Okay.
Done.
Okay.
No, but I do
I'll-
like
I'll-
these,
I'll wait.
I do like the back page ones, so let's get to those.
Okay,
We talked about vacant registry, talked about sign. I know, but I did want to clarify, we were gonna probably try to bring some other modifications to chapter 23 when it comes to nonconformities and see if we can help property owners there, because there are some very strict limitations of what you can and cannot do with a non-conforming property. And that's based on the lot size, the building, or the use. And see what we can do there, because we have a lot of business that would like to move here, and it's a non-conforming use, and it can't come in or it can't expand. There's a variety, I'm not sure how much we can do, but we would like to bring that to your attention, because that has been a major problem with a lot of entities.
Yeah, we lost a coffee roaster.
That would have smelled good.
Go ahead.
Miss May's light is on.
It's like Buffalo smells like Cheerios because they
Yes.
have General Mills right downtown. I just have a question for this, and I thought maybe you were talking about residential as well, but can we also look at the residential requirements for non-conforming build houses, homes, or whatever in historic neighborhoods?
Non-contributing.
Whatever they're called. Because what's happening now is we're getting to the point where it's cheaper and easier to knock the whole damn thing down and start over. And that's ridiculous. So we need to look at 2026. We want people to be able to harden their homes for current conditions with hurricanes and stuff, but plus allow them to create the homes that look like, I don't get into all the 87 different kinds of homes, but I mean, I don't want people to have to knock down their homes and build these ugly blocks.
Well, I was gonna say, I just drove down North Lakeside and North Palm White
Yeah.
today
That's crazy.
because I hadn't seen this, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like Legoland up there.
Oh, it's awful. But if you can't put a metal roof on, you have to put these fancy
Yeah.
windows on. You can't do this. You can't do this. You can't, unless you knock the whole thing down and start over.
Yeah, I mean, the fact,
Why wouldn't you?
It's right. It's just come up recently, and that I'm sure we've all heard is, and I've had this issue before when I was representing private clients. I'm in a historical district. I'm in a non-contributing house. I want to put a metal roof on my house. My neighbors did it 10 years ago, and I can't do it because it's not. I think we need to take a look at that, Mr. Segrich.
I think there's.
I would consent to having that discussion.
What?
For sure.
I'm consenting to having that discussion.
Yeah, no, I think we
I
need
consent, yes. I
Well,
mean,
let's do that a different night, because we also have to abide by the Florida Building Code and the FEMA regulations, and much of our historic districts are in a flood zone, and substantial improvement by definition of the Florida Building Code has actually, we've talked about this in neighborhood associations, it is going to encourage non-contributing properties to be torn down because they have to be brought up to current code. If they have a substantial improvement, pardon?
Can they look more conforming to the community though? Like, do we have
Well-
any teeth with
well,
that?
Not with
No.
Senate Bill 180. We can't make something more difficult than it is now, and we allow contemporary architecture in historic districts.
All right. We're out of control tonight.
But architectural review for aesthetic purposes has been illegal in Florida since about 1920 something. But the only exception I think that was given is the town of Palm Beach. Their ARCOM board.
There you go. Okay, where are we?
Last slide.
Last slide.
okay.
Yeah, we like this. We like
Additional
this.
references.
Yes.
The answer is yes to this page.
Okay, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, because we had talked about with code, the focus of code is whether it's life safety, which of course, but since we're really just doing external, unless there's like a propane tank parked next to a house,
Yeah.
curb appeal. And then I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about
The dumping.
cleanliness, the curb appeal of the city is really important. And a lot of times it's a coat of paint, even if it's just on the front part
Right,
of the building.
And
right.
the last part, we have been talking, and I spoke to the mayor yesterday about it, and Yolanda and I talked about it, and some of the code officers brought it up. We're going to create some sort of happy Lake Forest Beach colorful flyer
Mhm.
to put in notices of violation, the courtesy notice mailers that, don't be afraid. Please look in your letter and give us a call. This is the email. Work with us. We want to work with you for voluntary compliance and have something more friendly than the official notice that we have tried in vain to try to make it softer.
Right, and your suggestion of adding a flyer to that package I thank you for that because
That was staff. That was
oh, it's
staff.
staff, which I've been trying to a long time.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're all on the same page because when those letters come out, single space, you're on a violation, blah, blah,
They're not fun.
people freak out. I mean, but your brain starts working about the second paragraph. So if there's one, you open this one first that says, don't freak out. We're going to work with you. Here's call your code person, work with them on terms of compliance and you'll get an extension if you're actually, so thank you very much, staff, for that.
Also, Mr. Perry is working on having legal look at the notices, our formal notices, because it talks about foreclosure, it talks about all this stuff,
It's
and
a
it
lot.
frightens a
It's
lot
very
of
frightening.
our property owners when they see those notices.
Oh, yeah.
We've been saying it for years that, those notices are a lot, and they're very intimidating. So I know he's been talking to us, and I know he sent Krista and I some examples of notices other municipalities
Great.
have to kind of see if we can fix our notices to be less intimidating.
Great.
Good.
Miss Malag,
Malaga.
Malag, I got you on the.
I love it. I love it.
And then
Okay.
Mr. Secretary, then I have one more thing I want to bring up.
Yes, it's beautiful. This is kind of on this curb appeal and noticeable landscape. I would love for us to change our bulk pickup to the first week of the month. Because I think that a lot of the stuff that we deal with in the city has to do with why is bulk on the third week when people move on the first?
Because Jamie said no.
Okay, wait. I would like to see if we have consensus to give policy direction that starting in August, September, enough to give staff time to work out schedules, that we move bulk pickup and educate to the first week of the month. Let's just try it. I mean, in my opinion, what's the worst that could happen?
What if we do it with new budget cycle, October 1?
Then that's 3 months that we could be
Yeah.
doing it the right way. But I mean, I just think that if we could get any kind of policy consensus
Yeah.
to
let's
make
try it.
that change and make it happen, it's going to cost us the same. Just shift it to the first week and let's see if we can get those dumpings down. Let's see, because I know in my neighborhood, the dumping happens on the third week of the month on the exact same empty lots. And it's always because of people moving. They don't want their landlord to find them, or they want to get their security deposit back. So all their furniture goes on the empty lots on the third week of the month. Maybe if we could do it,
Ours
we
don't.
might be
They
able to
just go
clean
right
this
on
up
the
a little bit. But I would love to see if we can have consensus for that.
Eviction.
Yeah, I think if we
I
can certainly try
I
that.
can try.
Mr. Perry's lights on.
Good. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you allow me to get with the
Mhm.
Public Works Director together a schedule? Because I don't know if he can have it done by then, but working towards that, at least put together some type of schedule that we can bring back to the commission. You can look at what needs to be done in the interim to get done. I just want to make sure, because I don't want to commit to
Talked about
something that
earlier.
we can't do. So let me
Well,
talk
we
with
can't, I love you, but we can do it. We
I
just need to
understand, but-
make we've been
give him some-
asking.
He's
for it.
asking for
Yeah,
some
right.
time to.
I'm just
figure it out.
asking to
Yes.
let me
Yes,
have to put
please.
together something and bring it back to you.
But I think that it will also, I really think it's going to help us greatly with the dumping.
And I think I'm all for it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But I also think that we're not going to be surprised when we see those mattresses coming out on the second week because somebody bought a new mattress or a new couch or whatever. I have no problem trying it, but I don't think it's actually going to solve the entire problem. Mr. Segridge. And I have one more thing I want to bring up before we stop.
Okay, I have a bunch of kind of policy discussion stuff for. Mhm. So one is the usage of Google Earth and Google Street View in terms of code compliance, and that is related to a secondary one, which is kind of a statute of limitations on things. So one of the common complaints that we get is, or at least that I get, is a new homeowner or a new business owner, could be third string down the line, and they get cited for pavers were installed without a permit between 2011 and 2022. And the people freak out. What the hell is this, right? There's a lot of that.
Yeah,
I think
you've spoken to the.
Yeah, I think we have to recognize that 60-70% of our properties are non-conforming to our current code. And I kind of think there's some technological challenges that we have as a city as well. I know for my own personal house file, I had to collect permits out of 3 or 4 other house files. I took pictures of it all when I first moved in because I was trying to get a pool permit and stuff. And I was very diligent about copying the whole thing because I was like, wow, this is really cool to look at. When I look at my digital copy, it's mostly blank. And a lot of that has to do with technology where as it scans in, it optimizes the pages. But if you have old pages, they just get optimized to blank. So, if you're looking at like a really old permit, like a 1945 or 1975, you got to hold it up to the light and kind of move it around to see it. So I suspect there's things that our code enforcement officials can't find in these files because some of the digitization. A couple of specific examples, McMowell Art Glass got cited for not having a sign permit. The CRA paid for their sign. They most certainly had a sign permit and they were able to produce it. I know of at least 3 or 4 others that fell into that particular category, right?
Technology lost it.
Well, who knows? Who
Some they don't have.
habitat trees? Who knows what the particular example is? But we have these challenges, right? I think as a commission, one, we need to make a policy decision as to whether we want code enforcement to be using Google Earth or Google Street View. And I would separate the two of them because I have a real problem with Google Earth because I think it becomes a constitutional problem. Google Street View is a little bit different because that is what's publicly visible. So I think you can make that argument. But I do have a problem reaching way back into like the Wayback Machine and trying to find something wrong with that property that isn't life, health, safety, and it's been that way for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But I think as a body, we need a decision on those two things. And then kind of either do we pick a date and say anything before that's not life, health, safety, or maybe some exclusions like water heaters or ACs where we can, we can legitimately tell, right? And there is a danger of having an old water heater in a house and so on. But this has been the source of frustration for a lot of people. And then related to it is, okay, now that nonconformity is there, can we lessen it, right? So, I've got a neighbor that has a circular driveway. She wants to reduce the amount. It's all concrete. She wants to reduce it down to pavers and so on. She's been denied doing that. Now, I know in talking with William said that, they should be able to do that. And it might have been miscommunication along that process and so on. But I really would, like us to take those 3 things and kind of make a decision, or say, let's have an informed discussion that comes back from staff on that before we make a decision. But, where I stand on it is I don't think we should be using Google Earth. I don't think we should be going back on Street View past 5 years ago. And I think we need to pick a date where we say, moving forward, that's on you guys, because we're going to have good digital copies of these things and you can do your research. But from that date, we really can't. And then the other caveat to that is if you're the one that owned the house since 1945 and did all the unpermitted work, that's on you. That's really on you. Yeah. It's the change in ownership that's there. And that, that comes back into that buyer beware kind of scenario question. Sometimes it's just not possible. Right. On that. So I'd be interested in what my colleagues have to say about that.
I have actually had that conversation with Elizabeth before because, and I want to, again, when I was working privately with people, they bought a house, they're fixing up the house and code, the inspector comes in and says, but wait, what about that? It's like, well, yeah, but that was there when I bought the house. And if it's, if it's not on fire, right? If it's not how because then they get a violation for something that somebody did 15, 20 years ago. And I don't think that's fair. My other point on this, so I have notes of like what I want to bring up. That's exactly what I want to bring up. The other thing I want to bring up is we have Nadine Burns was a commissioner in District 3 for a while. And she had her house completely done with permits to get storm windows and just got permits, got everything permitted.
Permits from the 2 houses over.
Well, no, I'll finish the story. Thank you. A couple of years later, she got a phone call from a neighbor at the same number, but a different street that said, I was just looking at my property file and your permits are in my property file. Now, if she had been, there are mistakes. I mean,
I'm just listening to
You know, and there are a lot, I mean, there was a fire, there was a lot of, you know, years ago, there was a flood, we lost a lot of stuff, but so the filing is not always perfect. So if she had been cited, it would have been really hard for her to say, I did get a permit. Now, you know, yes, we should keep a copy of our completed permits, absolutely. But she didn't because, you know, and so fortunately somebody found it and had it switched. So I guess my point is sometimes we just have to say the person's not trying to screw the city. Sometimes it really is something that happens that's not their fault. That's all. Okay, so I see.
I want to address that. 'Cause we as staff have been discussing having a 5-year mark and what ramifications those would have. And as part of the scanning project, we are trying to clean up inconsistencies where things are not in the right folder because we're having people go through them before we send them out. So if things are in the wrong property file, we're hoping we're trying to fix as much as we possibly can. We've discussed internally, we'll give you back a report that we were looking at, and we have implemented to some degree a 5-year amnesty timeframe.
If it's a new owner.
Yes, not for.
If it's a new owner. Yeah, and I mean, sometimes I mean, let's not always say the owner, the resident is trying to put something over on the city. Sometimes it really is something. Well, I mean, I've been on all sides of this bench, this table, right? All three sides, and it does happen. And nothing's perfect. Nothing's perfect. I got Malega and McBoy.
I just have a technology question. How do you know, is there a date stamp on the Google image?
You can go back years.
So but I'm saying, can you change the picture to
Yeah.
go back years?
Yep. Yeah, it's cool. Try it out. It's cool.
Technology. So you can literally look at, not Google Earth, the other one, the street view.
Yeah.
You can change the street view.
But I think less so. It doesn't go back as far as.
Must be 2007, I believe.
I didn't know that you could go back. I
2007.
thought it was just whatever time Google
Yeah.
took the most recent picture. That's what time,
Right.
that's when your
No.
car, your.
I mean,
your
in terms
house
of
there.
objecting to it, it is public record. I mean,
So-
it's not like they're doing anything secret. And if it's something that in the backyard that the city shouldn't be able to see from the street, they're not going to cite that
No,
anyway.
we're not gonna use that.
Right.
No.
So I would give consensus and support the 5-year. But if you've lived in the house since 1942, it's on you. I agree. But 5 years if
Yeah.
there's a change in ownership. I like the Google images for 5 years back because it does show, okay, you didn't have this driveway and all of a sudden you have this
Mhm.
driveway and there's no permit.
Right.
So that I do support. I don't approve of the thing that goes over the earth. I don't like that. I think it's
Yeah.
creepy.
Yeah.
100% creepy. And going back further than 5 years, I have a saying, and I'll have to tell you guys because I can't say it on the dais, but basically don't look up a dead because it died and it doesn't matter how it died, it's dead.
Okay. Mr. McVoy?
I support not using Google Earth. I understand we don't Google Earths on the straight down. I think the street view is fine. I would agree with probably 5 is a reasonable number. Don't go back. And I certainly, I do have one caveat, but I agree with if you have a change of ownership, yeah, let's not go back after the people unless it's a life safety. The one exception that I would add to that, and I don't know how to add to it, but I just bring it onto our attention, is one of our goals with the city is to increase the amount of area for infiltration of rainfall. We know that we are moving to higher sea levels. We know that we are moving to more intensive rainfall. We know that we already have a flooding problem. All of those say the more ground area you have, like ground, dirt, soil scientist, yeah, that stuff, the better. So try to keep that in the mix somehow. But I still don't think, we want to go after somebody who did something 50 years ago, but maybe encourage them. Hey, look, if you can help infiltrate more, you're doing a good thing for the community as a whole and our water supply.
For clarification, Commissioner Seeger said the property owner who violated, we can go further back or we're still.
If you're
sticking-
still there.
Okay, if they're still there, but the new owners, only 5 years. Okay.
Yeah, correct. I think we're all.
I consent.
Mr. Segrich?
Wait, I would like to say something about that. So. 5
Say your
years
name
is
first.
Barry Schultz, the building official. On new structures that were put in without permit, that is where we use PAPA, and it's not Google Earth, we use PAPA because they take their own aerial photographs every year. And we use it to verify. Someone will say, that extra dwelling unit has been there
Or forever.
forever. And then you look and it's only 10 years old. And we don't penalize new owners. I never charge that 2 times the permit fee on new owners because they didn't do it illegally, but we need to permit it and inspect it because people are occupying those spaces. And it doesn't matter if it's 10 years or 15 years ago that it was built, it needs to be safe, especially if they're renting them out. So I want to make sure that with things like that, we're already, I can't tell you how many times on code cases where I see windows that are over 10 years old, an AC unit. We don't cite for that. I'm asked by code and I say, no, it's too old. We're not citing for that.
Yeah.
Because it's already at the end of its life. So we're not citing for those items when I'm asked. So sometimes I get through and then I find it later and say, hey, let's take that away from the code case. We're not going to cite for those things. So I understand the 5 years, but there are some things like new structures that people are
That would be life
occupying.
safety.
Would be
a new
life safety. And
structure.
we have to keep
I
doing
think
that.
I'm
just the
so happy to hear
general,
you say that
the
because
general spirit.
I had a client years ago, they bought a little house, they were trying to fix it up, and this was a long, long time ago. Nobody was here that was here now. And there was a particularly kind of mean couple code enforcement officers that had bad reputations, and he noticed the air conditioner. He said, you don't have a permit for that air conditioner. He's like, we bought the house with the air conditioner. It was an old air conditioner. I had to track down the guy that did the air conditioner. His little stamp was on it. He had done work all his life in Lake Worth Beach. In Lake Worth, he said, Betty, I always get a permit. That's my practice. He was literally on his deathbed. And I got an affidavit from him, and the city did accept it that he had gotten permits. So I'm glad to hear you say that. That old stuff is.
I do want all the public to know that we, with the warts of our electronic system, we have all building permits that have been issued going back to 2006.
To when?
2006. So for 20 years, we have defensible record of what building permits have been issued and what they were for.
Thank you. Ms. May.
This is just something to put in the heads, but not necessarily to talk about tonight. But one of the complaints that we get a lot is people not getting called back. And I don't know the process. And I know that there's this whole report that the old auditor did and all of that stuff. But, that's frustrating because we get that. And whether or not it's true or not, that's what we're hearing. So, and also the communication between code and permitting. Because if you're waiting on a permit to get in front of and the magistrate date's coming and you're freaking out because code and permit, I don't know how it works. And I actually would like to go spend a lot of time and figure this out. I actually want to ride around with a code person, not you, like a real one. Like not the boss. The boss. I want to ride around with somebody just doing their job.
Okay.
But I want to see how it works. So I'm not accusing, I'm curious. But if there's a communication gap somewhere, we need to fix that. And I don't know if it's a policy thing, if it's a director thing, if it's a city manager thing, but it is something that we hear.
Or emails returned.
Well, building sits in before we go to special magistrate hearing. We have case reviews with the city attorney.
But I mean, way before that.
Building sits in.
Way before that. Like when people are writing and because you said it's got like all this time before it gets to a magistrate.
Correct.
I'm talking about way before that. Just making sure that everybody's getting called back and that somebody is walking people through this. You know, when I kind of said, when I go in to get a permit, I want a guy or a girl to be my permit person and take me from when I walk in until I walk out. And I don't want to write an email to a general permits at Lake Worth Beach. I want to write it to a person. And that's where I think the people are getting really frustrated.
And I appreciate that. Due to our historic turnover in the city, we had to create division-based emails because we put out their person's name. That person assumes who's writing it, that person's going to be here forever. And at a point, that person's not with the city anymore and their email goes dead. And they're still sending emails. And I haven't heard back from so-and-so. I said, that person hasn't worked here for 18 months.
Right. No, and I understand that. But the problem with a general email is, and if you emailed commission at Lake Worth Beach, I don't know if Sarah's answered, and she's assumed I've answered, and probably neither of us has answered because we don't want to deal with it because the person's mad. But you know what I'm
We
saying?
have a system for that because we track all of that, and we're still working through some kinks, but please keep in mind that 25% of the planning and preservation staff is vacant as of today. Barry until recently had 2 inspector officers vacant out of 6 positions. We have
So you have a skeleton crew.
we have a workload that we are struggling to keep up with. Co-compliance does a fabulous job. Well, they're ahead of us. There aren't enough of other people to help with all the cases they're generating. So we will be bringing back some of that discussion, and we have some ideas of how to moderate some of the stuff. You're going to hear about it a little bit in the budget.
Yeah.
But we do and could really use more customer service specific, but also not a whole like planner, but like a zoning technician or a they had one in West Palm. I can't remember the name of the position, but it was a lower level staff because we also are struggling to hire people because our pay and benefits aren't competitive with other areas, and we
I
cannot.
thought we just did the comp in class.
Yeah, but that was done like 3 years ago, and the CPI has changed a lot in 3 years. It's gone up by about 15%. Did our pay ranges change 15% in those 3 years? No.
I'm talking to a teacher, so let's not get started.
And trying to attract people from out of state, and there was an article about West Palm.
Yeah, I saw that.
We've had some amazing talent, and since I just can't afford to move there, and so we have to move on to somebody else. So we are making some moderation.
Okay. So just, I promised the people that I would say that tonight, and I did that. So now it's out there, and we can move on from that.
And we hear that from everybody.
Everybody.
Mr. Segridge.
Thank you. On that note, I believe it truly is a technology problem for you guys. The proper
They know that.
customer service ticketing system would make light years of difference no matter what your staffing levels are. And I, for one, am committed to making sure that you guys get what you need in that realm. And I have a background in that, but I think everyone up here is also committed to that. But we just need to know, because as much as I'd like to jump in and get in the weeds with that with you guys, it's really not necessarily appropriate. But we will support you in getting you those systems that will help you leverage the staff that you have and answer everything, because there are so many wonderful technologies that can resolve that. So you just know that you have I think I speak for us. You have our support.
3 aspects of technology which would help us have the technology work is that if you're submitting an application, make sure it's legible. We can read the phone number and the email.
They write it.
Many do.
It's not typed in.
That's the problem right there. We can't have a Google form.
We do have a Google form, but we also allow paper forms. We have been asked to be as customer friendly as possible and accept
It's 2026.
whatever comes in, comes in.
Yeah.
Business licenses come in and we have no way to contact the person saying, oh, we have maybe a name and you cannot read the address, you cannot read the phone number. If you're going to submit something, if you have to hire someone possibly to write it so we can actually read it, that would help. And if you call us, please leave a message. And we can, because I get the complaints and I ask, what number did you call? I don't know.
Right.
Well, if you left,
I always ask, who did you speak with?
and then IT can track where that phone, well, what number did you call from? I can have IT figure out where the log jam is. And 95% of the time, I can't get enough information from those people to track and figure out what happened.
Really?
And it's we want to help them, but we can't call them back if we don't know what the number is.
So
And just assuming that caller ID is going to pop up and then you don't leave a message and that we're going to miraculously call that number back. Once it's off the caller ID, it's kind of gone for a while and you have to go digging around.
Yeah, but you're talking about the general email. I don't
There's
have.
technology. We can.
yeah. So then one of the other kind of policy things that I think, and we don't have to have the full discussion tonight. I know we're getting late, but it would be great for staff to come back, I think, with some direction here is when do the clocks stop and start on fines, depending on people trying to be good participants in the process, such as, I get cited for not having my use and occupancy. I'm out of the country for 25 days, but I get it on day 30. And now all of a sudden I've got 12 things to comply, and one of them requires a permit. And now that permit takes me X number of months or weeks to get, and so on. But sometimes, maybe because my landlord had this problem before, we're a repeat offender, and now the clock is ticking on fines. Just sat in and listened to one where they have documented communications to staff for 20 days trying to get an answer on what ground cover can we put there, and we're going to put it there the next, and then 5 days later, once they got the answer, they fixed it, right? But should they get fined for that 20 days leading up to that?
They did not.
Now,
They did not get fined for those 20 days.
I don't want to argue about it.
The fines were reduced. We were suggesting $500 a day, and it was reduced to $100 a day, and they were repeat offenders, and
Yeah.
it does not normally.
If you want to go back through the transcript with me, I would enjoy doing that, because Ms. Malego, when I'm talking and someone challenges me, it's, just let me get my point across, and I won't have to go back and do that.
And a lot of this will be done with staff.
Just to clarify for the public, the fines do not start until the date that has been established by the special magistrate.
Understood.
It's a repeat. If it starts.
Understood. However, as part of this, I think we need to make a conscious decision as a commission. How do we want that to be handled? Because, and this is my reasoning behind it, our permitting process
Isn't the fast.
it can be all over the place. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's not. And sometimes that's the fault of people, and sometimes it's not. But overwhelmingly, it's not predictable. Like, oh, you want to get a fence done? 2 weeks, no problem. So, but if people get caught up and they're getting fined and they're waiting in that process, and it happens both ways. I do have examples of where it's happened both ways, where people have been fined while they're waiting, and where people have been told, oh, everything's on pause because you applied for a permit and now you're okay. I believe as a body, we need a specific policy that outlines it clearly so that there's no question of that, because right now it's not consistent.
Well, I mean, fines don't run until you get to this, and just, fines don't start, fines don't start.
Until you get to the special magistrate.
Right, and before that time, and I think staff.
Unless you're classified as a repeat offender.
Right.
And so, but either way, I think we need to make the determination policy from us. Great. Let's say you get to the special magistrate and they say, nope, that's 18-foot offense. You needed a permit. Go get your permit. Next day after the special magistrate is $100 a day fine. You apply for.
They usually give 30 days or 45 days to comply.
Sometimes they don't, Mayor. Oh my God. There are.
I'm sorry. Can everyone speak into their mics, please?
There are instances where people are getting fined while their permit application is in. If you need me to find specific ones, I will.
I think
when that's happening, I think we need a policy that dictates that. Now, that policy can be, no, they get fined. That's fine. But I think it needs to come from the dais, and it has to be crystal clear as to what happens with that, because right now it's not consistent. And I think that's something we need to discuss. And I would like to have staff's recommendation or outline of what that is, because I've had enough examples where it's not consistent. It really isn't. And I'm not faulting staff. I'm not saying you guys are doing a bad job on this. It's just, I think from a commission standpoint, this is something we need to decide.
If they've gotten as far as the special magistrate,
Right.
I'm going to assume that they've been given time, that they're actively working, and they would have, if they're working, they would get extensions of time. Once they get to the point of fine, magistrate, 30 days, 45 days to comply. And they're still, I mean, they should have gotten the work done before they went to the magistrate. But, I mean, if it's inconsistent, we need to not be inconsistent.
It's 100% inconsistent.
Well, okay, then maybe you could.
And whether that's, and what I'm saying is we need to have this conversation amongst us and decide as a commission, what do we want to direct them to do?
See, I mean, I don't know how policy could help, because until you get to the special magistrate, there's no fine. once you get to the special
So
magistrate.
it sounds like you're of the opinion, if staff takes 2 weeks to get you the fence permit or 6 months for the fence permit, too bad. You still get fined during that period.
No, there's no fine until you get to the magistrate.
And once you get to the magistrate and the fine is running and you go and apply for your fence permit, what happens? Does the fine stop running?
Well, you should have applied for the fence permit before you got to the
Okay,
magistrate.
that's my exact point. You're of the opinion that you should get billed for all those days, whether staff takes 2 weeks or 6 months to get you that
I think you
permit.
have to look at the facts of the particular case. If they didn't apply for a permit or whatever before they went to the, if they waited until after the
Yeah,
magistrate.
all I'm saying is this is something we need to discuss. I happen to disagree with you on it. And I think as a body, we need to make a decision on what that has to be. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to argue it now because I would like staff's input as to what they think that should be and when the thing stops and starts. They may come back and agree with you 100%. I just don't want to talk about it now.
You can make a policy on how many days you want us to give the property owner to come into compliance with the permit. Once that case hits the special magistrate and its fines accruing, you cannot stop fines until the property comes into compliance. You cannot make a policy to stop those fines once there's an order on the property.
But staff could recommend to the magistrate that, you know what, it took us 25 days over the normal limit to get them that permit. We really would recommend to you reduce their fine by those 25 days.
We take that into consideration. We do that before we even take it to the special magistrate. We do
The
that.
last one I sat in on, they were told, too bad, so sad. It took 20 days to get back. So I'm just saying, we need a policy.
There was an email sent to the interim city manager. Once the property came into compliance, we were going to remove 20 days of those fines since the property owner stated that it took 20 days. That email has already gone to the interim city manager.
Right,
So
but
he is
that
well
was-
aware of how we plan on handling that case.
And that was after the magistrate was given advice from our attorney to not do that.
Well, we did not know that it took 20 days prior to the hearing. We
And
had no idea.
With all due respect,
Mr.
you guys did.
Torsivi, let's,
Yeah, I'm not gonna interrupt, but
city attorney.
you really shouldn't be talking about specific cases. That case may eventually come back in front of you for exposure or some other kind of decision. And so specific cases, maybe
and that-
when
and
you start
that's-
talking about what happened in front of the magistrate.
I think we've kind of hit all the notes tonight, and I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I have one more thing.
Second.
We don't need a motion. It's a workshop. We just need to adjourn.
Oh, we just need to adjourn.
I don't think we should adjourn in mid-motion. You're
All right.
mid-speaking.
Mr.
Okay.
Segrich,
I-
want to
I-
wrap it up?
I have one more thing.
And everybody.
And I had sent you guys an email about this, and I do think this is a policy direction. Yeah, I said a while ago. So the mayor had asked me to send her specific cases where the Supreme Court of Florida basically states that if code is ambiguous, it needs to be interpreted in favor of the property owner.
Yeah, I've started going through those cases, and I think we need to look at the facts of those cases. I mean, it's one thing just to say, I mean, I am a lawyer, like go by the head notes of a case. This is what the rule is, but I think you also do need to, and I'm going to look at those cases to see what the facts were.
But I think, what I'm asking is, and there's two parts to this, to have city attorney kind of look at that and look at how we've been approaching that up until now, because I don't think we've been approaching it in interpreting in favor of the property owner. And I personally would like us to start doing that. The second half of this is there are a lot of things that we talk about and interpret within our code due to the construction clause in chapter 23 for inclusionary as to use. And I included that in the email. And in the plain reading of that paragraph specifically applies to use in zoning, not in the broad areas of where it was applied. And the example of where it was applied was artificial turf. It was stated that, because artificial turf isn't mentioned in our code, therefore it's not allowed because of that construction clause. And I think that's a mistake. And I would like the city attorney to investigate that and spend some time on that, because those two areas are also a big source of frustration for people because they look at it and they say, I'm being cited for something and I can't even find the term in our code. And, you know, we can't be doing that.
Okay, but all right, it's an exclusion. I mean, if it's not in the code, it's not allowed. That's the exclusion.
But that paragraph does not apply to the entire code. That's the problem.
So the city has taken that position for decades, as far as I know.
Mhm.
And if we're going to change it, that's probably an ordinance change. Because
Oh, it's a big, yeah. It's a big
if there's going to
change.
be a change, then that would be your policy decision to change that ordinance, not changing the, like I said, multiple decades before
Right.
our time interpretation. If that's the way that's been interpreted. So it's
And
not
not
something
just
that,
here, I don't think.
it's not just something that we can just say, you know, our opinion is different. It's been the city's position that way for decades. So if the city wants to take a different position, you adopt an ordinance that changes that and say, okay, we want to clarify it. We don't mean that it means this. We mean that it means that.
Okay, so we should look at that. But that would make it not an exclusionary code.
Right. We change the intent.
There's two components to it. The exclusionary use is one thing, but also how the code, I forgot what it's called, it's a term about how it's constructed. And in our code, before and now, we list things that are allowed, not just use, but like for ground cover.
Right.
The type of material you want for a fence. For years, all we allowed was wood and stone and something else. Vinyl wasn't in the code anywhere, and we couldn't allow vinyl because the way the code is constructed, it wasn't specifically mentioned as something, because I think it had in there substantially similar. Well, vinyl isn't substantially similar to wood. So I think Commissioner Robinson went through and we had some little charrettes and stuff years back. And so we added vinyl plus a few other materials now that are allowed for fence materials. We don't allow if you want to use. No, that actually specifically prohibited.
Says that, yeah.
But we had somebody who wanted to build their fence out of plywood. Yes. And I'm like, no, that's not allowed. That's not a good
It's not
idea
on
for
the
a
list of
fence.
what you can use.
Right. And so the code has two ways to be constructed, and and that's how it's been interpreted before 2013 and after 2013.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, there's more lights on.
I've had my light on, sitting here
Okay.
patiently. I just want to go on the record. I am not in favor of giving any repeat offenders any leniency. I am a hard no. We started this conversation with that whole slide. Florida statute, repeat offender. A repeat offender in my world is a repeat offender. And if it's taking 20 years, our staff, I have full confidence, will come forward and say, you know what? It's on our building department. It's on our lack of staff.
You mean
It took
20 days.
25 days or
Not 20
2 months, or could be 20 years, depending on what happens, for this permit to get processed. Please take that off the fine. I am not in favor of not charging fines, because that's why people just keep doing the same thing. It's that simple. So I will never support a policy that says repeat offenders, we just say, no, we're just going to give you a pass. No.
Thank you. Mr. McFoy.
My one is a general comment, not on repeat offenders, but relates more to some of the things that Commissioner Segwitz was raising. Let's try to think about the perception, because that's what we hear of, the perception in the community. The perception we understand, I think, is not always based on the full facts and the full information and, you know, a bunch of things. But the perception in the community is important. Consistency is important. Perception of fairness, perception of whatever, perception of business friendly, that we aren't going to delay somebody who's, you know, we're going to find ways to not delay as long as it's not a life safety zone. So if we can keep those objectives very front and center, what are we trying? We're trying to make the city a better place, healthier place, make it work economically, all those things. I think that might, I think you do keep that in mind, but you know, bump it up slightly. And yes, the customer service part, that one, that I think we all get calls on that. And let's look to the technology.
All right, I got yelled at because of John Prince Park's Easter situation. Why don't I have a tracker on the thing? I said,
yeah.
Yes, you're right.
I was at emo last week, 2 weeks ago, and one of the guys came up and said, elected officials, you got to understand. What? We're public, we're still on. No. That if you pave the streets with gold, someone will complain about the glare. If you have a lot of potholes, someone will look at it as traffic calming.
Yes, I have.
So there's always, no one's ever going to be happy.